Chapter 153. The Qin army's arrow formation was well known. In the past, Mo had only seen it in books and TV dramas. Today, he witnessed the power of the Qin army's arrow formation. In one round of arrows, over 300 strong mutated zombies were killed. The Qin crossbows were bigger and harder than normal crossbows. Hence, the speed of the arrows was much faster. Even the strong mutated zombies could not avoid the arrows. Once the skin was scratched, the zombie virus on the arrows would enter the zombie's body. After 3 rounds of arrows, close to 1,000 strong mutated zombies were killed. The rest of the mutated zombies did not dare to move forward. The hundreds of thousands of human-headed spiders were probably too stupid. Although many of their companions had died, they still charged forward fearlessly. Although the Qin army's arrow formation was strong, there were too many human-headed spiders. In the end, a large number of human-headed spiders broke through the arrow formation and arrived 100 meters away from the Qin army. Mo originally thought that the human-headed spiders would be able to charge into the Qin army and fight with the zombie terracotta soldiers. But at this moment, Qin Shi Huang waved his bronze sword. He roared, "Shoot straight!" The zombie terracotta soldiers lowered the angle of the arrows. It was almost flying close to the ground. At the same time, the speed at which they shot arrows was much faster than before. These zombie terracotta soldiers were all at least level 5 mutated zombies. Their hand speed was extremely fast. Shooting 2 arrows in a second was not a problem. Also, when they finished shooting the arrows in their quiver, the bones in their hands would grow bone spikes. The bone spikes were as long as the arrows. It looked like a crossbow made of bone. After shooting 1 arrow, another one would grow out of their arms. Hence, they did not have to worry about running out of arrows. As a result, the crossbow bolts formed a dense barrier of death. All the human-headed spiders died quickly after entering this barrier. Mo was secretly shocked. The Qin army's arrow formation was indeed worthy of its reputation. In the distance, the 3 super-mutated zombies looked at each other. Then, the 3 super-mutated zombies suddenly shot out together. They went around the arrow formation with a speed of almost 1,000 meters per second and headed straight for Qin Shi Huang. However, when they pounced in front of Qin First Emperor, the zombie horse under Qin First Emperor suddenly let out a roar. Hiss, AO, its eyes were blood red. Then, he opened his mouth. The horse opened its mouth. The teeth in his mouth were shaped like awls. Under the sunlight, they shone with a cold light. It opened its mouth and bit the arm of a super-mutant zombie. Crack! The arm of the super-mutant zombie was bitten off. The zombie virus quickly infected its entire body. The super-mutant zombie collapsed to the ground. Mo was secretly surprised. He looked over with his blood demon eyes. Race, zombie horse level 5 super-mutated. Damn, Qin Shi Huang's mount is actually a level 5 super-mutated beast. No wonder this zombie horse could easily kill that super-mutated zombie. So that's where the level lies. Seeing this, the remaining 2 super-mutant zombies did not dare to attack from the front. They could only attack Qin Shi Huang from the side. However, when they attacked, Qin Shi Huang did not dodge. It wasn't because it was careless. Instead, it was unnecessary. The bronze sword in its hand suddenly drew a black arc in the air. Swish, swish, 2 sounds. The heads of the 2 super-mutant zombies flew up. Qin Shi Huang reached level 8 super-mutated beast. Those 2 zombies were only level 2 super-mutated beasts. In front of Qin Shi Huang, they were completely weak. With the death of these 3 super-mutant zombies, the remaining strong mutant zombies were like a group of dragons without a leader. One by one, they fled in all directions in fear. At this moment, Qin Shi Huang waved his bronze sword. Kill! The 8,000 Qin soldiers put away their crossbows and took out their bronze swords. They chased after the hundreds of thousands of human-headed spiders and strong mutant zombies. In a short period of time, the hundreds of thousands of human-headed spiders and strong mutant zombies were killed until their blood flowed like a river. They fled in panic. Of course, Mo would not let the remaining human-headed spiders and strong mutant zombies leave. With a move of his dragon mind, he killed all the human-headed spiders and strong mutant zombies. Qin Shi Huang saw that all the infected creatures were suddenly killed and was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked at Mo from afar. After a moment, he roared and ordered all the zombie soldiers to retreat. Then, his body flashed and disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Mo. He sized up Mo a few times, and a hint of puzzlement appeared on his face. I have killed you 9 times. Previously, when Mo's clone entered Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum many times, he killed it instantly. But this time, the hundreds of thousands of infected creatures were instantly killed. He knew that it must be this person's work. Mo nodded. Yes. Qin Shi Huang said again. Warrior, since you have saved the people of the Qin dynasty, your crime of entering the Qin palace can be written off. You should be the first meritorious deed. Then, he looked at the blood mist of the infected creatures and said. Today, the 4 seas are in turmoil and evil is rampant. Are you willing to follow me on an expedition to the east and to the west, purge the universe, pacify the world, and sweep through the lands? On the day of success, you will be bestowed land and given the title of king. Your name will be recorded in history. You will enjoy endless glory and wealth. Mo could not help but smile. In the past, this Qin Shi Huang was called ambitious. In the present, he was called Chinibu. He shook his head slightly and did not answer Qin Shi Huang directly. Instead, he pointed in the direction of the base. You plan to turn these humans into zombies like you? Qin Shi Huang turned his head and looked in the direction of the base. You also think that I am a tyrant? Mo said calmly. It's not what I think. That's what the history books say. Burning books and burying Confucians, punishing chariots, not caring about the lives of the people and building the imperial mausoleum. Aren't all these done by you? A green-faced terracotta general at the side shouted angrily. How dare you? As he spoke, he pulled out his bronze sword. Qin Shi Huang waved his hand to stop the green-faced zombie terracotta. General Bai Qi, back down. The green-faced zombie terracotta quickly replied, yes. As he spoke, he sheathed his bronze sword. Mo was stunned. He looked carefully at the green-faced zombie general. He had a strong body and sharp eyebrows. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. This person was Bai Qi? The butcher Bai Qi who claimed to have killed millions of enemies? The Grim Reaper Bai Qi? If he did not remember wrongly, Bai Qi and Qin Shi Huang were not people from the same era. His history teacher once said that Qin Shi Huang was only born 2 years after Bai Qi's death. However, after thinking about it, he understood. Qin Shi Huang relied on the zombie virus to revive. Maybe they used some method to preserve Bai Qi's corpse. Qin Shi Huang might have used the zombie virus to revive Bai Qi. At this moment, Qin Shi Huang laughed coldly and looked at the sky. So, this is how the people of the future evaluated me. He then shook his head and did not dwell on this matter. Instead, he said, the demon Su Fu bewitched me. I ordered him to go overseas to search for the celestial medicine. He did not find the celestial medicine and said that the terracotta technique could allow me to live forever. He turned me and my 8,000 soldiers into something that is neither human nor ghost. Now, my great Qin is dying and there are many things waiting to be done. How can I let the people suffer like this? When Mo heard this, he understood. Qin Shi Huang did not intend to kill these humans or infect them into zombies. His goal was to rule these humans. Thinking of this, Mo Shi dispelled the idea of killing Qin Shi Huang. Because after settling this matter, he planned to sign in at Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. According to the historical records, there were countless mechanisms in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. It was too risky to go there rashly. If he had a good relationship with Qin Shi Huang now, wouldn't it be easy for him to sign in at Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum? Thinking of this, Mo Shi said to Qin Shi Huang, "It's good that you don't kill these people. It's not convenient today. I'll visit the Qin palace another day. Goodbye." After he finished speaking, his figure moved and he disappeared. Only 100-meter-tall dragon shadow was left on the spot. Qin Shi Huang looked at the dragon shadow and pondered for a moment. Could this person be an ancient divine beast or a ferocious beast in human form? No wonder he wasn't afraid when he saw me. The green-faced zombie general beside him roared, "Your Majesty is the true dragon, the son of heaven. Even divine beasts or ferocious beasts should submit to your Majesty." Qin Shi Huang looked in the direction where Mo Shi disappeared. The gaze in his eyes gradually became sharp. All the land in the world belongs to the king. All the land is the king's subject. One day, he will also submit to me. A moment later, Mo Shi's dragon shadow slowly disappeared. Only then did Qin Shi Huang wave his hand at the Qin zombies and let out a half-human half-beast roar, "Return to the palace." Chapter 154. When Qin Shi Huang left with the 8,000 zombies, Qin Shi Huang was shocked. Below the walls of the base, the humans were prepared to fight to the death. But now, they were all confused. How did the zombies fight with the zombies? Why did they leave? What's up with that giant dragon shadow? Oh right, I've seen this giant dragon shadow before. It should be a mysterious powerhouse. One of the hunters suddenly spoke. The other hunters also nodded. That's right, it's exactly the same as the giant dragon shadow. It's just much bigger than the previous one. They didn't know that what they saw before was only Mo Shi's clone. Mo Shi's clone only had the strength of a level 10 hunter. So when he used the dragon shadow step, he could only leave a 10-meter-tall shadow. At this time, Mo Shi was rushing to Xian province while using the flesh of the infected creatures he killed along the way to create 10 clones. He was now a level 5 great hunter and a level 2 long Nian Shi. The strength of the clones he created had greatly increased. Each of them was a level 1 great hunter and a level 1 psychic. It could be said that even his clones could do whatever they wanted in Wuxia. Of course, the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang was an exception. After creating the 10 clones, Mo Shi sent them to various parts of Wuxia to hunt down the remaining zombies. The king of zombies was dead. As long as the remaining zombies were wiped out, the whole of Wuxia would be at peace. As for Mo Shi's main body, he was rushing to Xian province as fast as he could. He had 2 goals for this trip. The first was to solve the siege of Xian province's base C4. The second was to check in at Xian province's dragon ruins. Lil the dragon shadow step, 10 kilometers per second. In less than 5 minutes, he had already arrived at the periphery of Xian province's base C4. At this time, the 3 walls of base C4 had been breached. The hunter group was fighting with the 20,000-strong mutated zombies. The ordinary soldiers were trying their best to resist the attacks of the human-headed spiders. Although they all knew that today was definitely the end. Every soldier and hunter group member was fighting with all their might. Although the end was already decided, it was impossible for them to just sit and wait for death. Everyone roared like wild beasts and attacked the infected creatures. At this moment, everyone in the base was filled with despair. Today was the end of base C4. But at this moment, bang 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 bang, continuous muffled sounds came from the infected creatures' bodies. Then, the infected creatures exploded into a bloody mist. Whether it was the human-headed spiders or the strong mutant zombies, none of them were spared. Even those super mutant zombies directly exploded into blood mist. After Immortal's draconic sense was upgraded to level 2, he could kill any super mutant creature below level 4 with just his draconic sense alone. In the base, the despairing humans were all stunned. What's going on? The infected creatures all exploded. The members of the hunting groups and the ordinary soldiers who were fighting thought that they would die today. He didn't expect these infected creatures to suddenly explode. While they were pleasantly surprised, they were also filled with doubt. What was going on? Could it be that the heavens had opened their eyes? Just as they were puzzled, a figure slowly walked out from the blood mist that filled the sky. At first, they could only see the silhouette of a person. Gradually, the silhouette became clearer. When the figure got closer, they finally saw the person clearly. He seemed to be in his 20s. There seemed to be no emotion in his cold eyes. It's him, he killed those infected creatures. So, he must be a psychokinesis user. Psychokinesis for sure. Otherwise, how could he do this? But even a level 10 psychokinesis user might not be able to do this, right? Amidst everyone's discussion, Immortal came to the front of the crowd and slowly stopped in his tracks. The leader of the base had also rushed over. He sized up Immortal, then nodded to Immortal. On behalf of more than 80,000 people in the base, thank you. Immortal just nodded slightly. He didn't expect these humans to be grateful. He just wanted the entire human civilization to continue. As for whether these people would be grateful to him or harm him by repaying his evil with good, he didn't care. Being grateful to him, he didn't expect to get any benefits from them. With the sign-in system, he didn't lack good things. He didn't care about the benefits they gave him. As for those who wanted to harm him with good for evil, he would just slap them to death. He looked at the leader of the base and moved his mind. A map appeared in his hand. When the surrounding people saw this, they exclaimed again. A map appeared out of thin air. What kind of method was this? Immortal handed the map to the leader of the base and slowly said, "Does anyone in your base recognize this place?" The leader took the map and looked at it. He didn't recognize it. The map was a little blurry, and the names of the mountains and rivers weren't clearly marked. He handed the map to the others next to him. After reading it, those people also shook their heads. Seeing a trace of disappointment in Immortal's eyes, the bureau chief hurriedly said, "But among the 80,000 people in our base, there are bound to be some who recognize it. If you don't mind, I'll pass this map down. There should be people who recognize it soon." The young man in front of them helped their base deal with hundreds of thousands of infected creatures. If they couldn't even help with such a small matter, it would be too unreasonable. Immortal wasn't in a hurry. Anyway, the system hadn't finished upgrading yet. He planned to go to the next dragon ruins to sign in after the system was upgraded. That night, Immortal stayed at base C4. The leader of the base ordered everyone not to disturb the young man if there was no reason. He was thinking that the young man's strength was so heaven-defying that it might have far surpassed level 10 psychokinesis. If their base could gain the young man's favor now and make him stay at base C4, then wouldn't base C4 no longer be afraid of infected creatures? That night, Immortal was arranged to stay in the best building in the base. At night, Immortal lay on the bed and checked his evolution points in his mind. He found that his evolution points had unknowingly exceeded 6 billion. The next upgrade wasn't far away. The next morning, Immortal woke up and walked out of his room. The sun was shining brightly, and the warm wind carried the fragrance of flowers. There was a peach tree in the courtyard where he lived, and the peach blossoms had already bloomed. Immortal couldn't help but be in a good mood. He sighed in his heart. Spring returns to the earth, and all things recover. It's time again. Forget it, it's not suitable for children. At the same time, the system in Immortal's mind showed that the upgrade had been completed in the early morning. Mo Shi was delighted. He shifted his attention to his mind. Upgrade complete. Upgrade reward, Blood Demon's Eye upgrade, upgrade reward, Virtual Sentry Tower upgrade reward, Invincible Diamond Body. Mo Shi checked the rewards in his mind. Blood Demon's Eye upgraded to Blood Dragon's Eye. Blood Dragon's Eye can detect corpse energy. Can observe the target's race and level. Can see the target's essence through the target's appearance. Compared to Blood Demon's Eye, Blood Dragon's Eye had an additional function: see the target's essence through the target's appearance. If there was a zombie king hiding in a human's body, Mo Shi's Blood Dragon's Eye would be able to recognize it at a glance. Chapter 155. The Eye of the Blood Demon had been upgraded to the Eye of the Blood Dragon. He could see the essence of the target through the surface. Mo Shi nodded slightly. This function was quite good. Then he looked at the upgraded Virtual Sentry Tower. Virtual Sentry Tower function: 1. Alert. Any danger within a radius of 100 kilometers will be alerted. 2. Interference. The Virtual Sentry Tower can release interference waves to interfere with the enemy's vision. Mo Shi nodded slightly when he saw this. This function was very powerful. In the future, if an enemy appeared within 100 kilometers, he would be able to predict it in advance. The only pity was that it couldn't detect the danger of the form of psychic power. For example, he couldn't detect the Plague Dragon's dragon will before. But it wasn't a big problem. Other psychic powers were far inferior to his dragon will. Only other draconic wills could be stronger than his draconic will. But his dragon will could perfectly restrain other dragon will. Therefore, he didn't have to worry about any other attacks on his dragon will. As for the invincible Vajra body, it was just icing on the cake. With the Blood Dragon armor and the Titan Dragon breastplate, he already had 2 layers of defense that no attack on Earth could break through. Now, with the invincible Vajra body, his defense could be said to be invincible. The previous king of zombies was afraid of Qin Nu, but Mo Shi had 3 layers of strong defense. The creatures on Earth that could kill him probably hadn't been born yet. Mo Shi took a few deep breaths. There was a relaxed smile on his face. Now, in the entire Wuxia, with his strength that could crush a level 10 mutated zombie, coupled with his invincible defense, he could finally be unstoppable in the true sense. Then, a system notification sounded in his mind: frowny face. Content of this upgrade: sign and reward plus 1000 times mechanism. Just like the previous upgrade, there was only one. But just this one was already very heaven-defying. Originally, after Mo Shi reached level 5, it would take at least half a year before he could level up again. But now that there was a reward of 1000 times, he would be able to level up again after signing in for 4 or 5 days at most. Mo Shi had a question in his heart: system, with the upgrade of the system, can you increase the reward infinitely? The system replied, frowny face: no, at most, it can be increased to 10,000 times. Mo Shi saw that the system had responded to him, so he hurriedly asked, what about after 10,000 times? Wouldn't his leveling speed slow down again? 1 level in half a year, and then 1 level in 3 to 5 years? Of course, when Mo Shi said it was slow, it was relative to before. If other people knew that he thought it was too slow to level up once in half a year, and that he thought it was too slow to level up once in 3 to 5 years, they would probably want to kill him. It took many years for the others to level up after they became hunters. You're already a great hunter. You'll be able to level up in 3 to 5 years, and you think that's too slow? The system replied, if you want to evolve into a Titan Dragon, you must first stabilize your foundation. And the stability of the foundation requires a long-term process. Mo Shi was a little speechless. Does that mean we can only slowly improve in the future? The system replied, of course, we can't rule out the possibility of some special opportunities that allow the host to level up quickly without affecting the stability of his foundation. Hearing this, Mo Shi asked, Can you be more specific? However, the system did not reply. However, Mosher finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was good to have hope. At this time, the base chief had already ordered breakfast to be served. 1 fried egg with leeks, 1 fried potato, 5 pancakes, and a bowl of pumpkin millet porridge. In his previous life, this was a common meal. However, in the current apocalypse, especially in base C4, which had just been attacked by a large number of infected creatures, this was considered the most sumptuous breakfast. In the entire base C4, only Mosher could eat breakfast like this. Even the base chief was just a dish, a bowl of porridge. Mosher had not eaten such a common meal for a long time. He swept all the dishes clean like a whirlwind. As soon as he finished eating, the base chief brought in an old man. This was an old man who was over 70 years old. The base chief introduced him to Mosher. Before the apocalypse, Uncle Chi specialized in mapping in Xin province. He was very familiar with the terrain of Xin province. He could tell what the mountains and rivers were at a glance. Mosher nodded at Uncle Chi as a form of greeting. Of course, Uncle Chi was very grateful to Mosher. Yesterday, when the infected creatures attacked, it was not a big deal for him to die. However, his grandson was just born 2 days ago. How could he bear to see a 2-day-old child be destroyed along with the base? It was all thanks to this Mr. Mo who saved the base and their family. He took out Mosher's map and a neatly folded piece of white paper. He opened the white paper and saw a hand-drawn map. The terrain on the map was almost the same as Mosher's map. However, it was more detailed than the ancient map that Mosher had. Not only were the names of the mountains and rivers marked, but the length of the rivers and the height of the mountains were also clearly marked. The base chief said, "Mr. Mo, you saved the entire base yesterday. Uncle Chi is grateful to you, so he hand-drew this map overnight." Mosher nodded at Uncle Chi to express his gratitude. Then, he carefully looked at the new hand-drawn map. According to this new map, he could clearly see that the location of the dragon ruins was called Lake Kanas. This reminded Mosher of the legend of the Lake Kanas monster that he had read in his previous life. It was said that huge monsters often appeared in Lake Kanas and dragged the horses on the shore into the lake. There were even a few people who took photos of the huge shadow of the monster under the lake. Now, the location of the dragon ruins on the map was directly marked on Lake Kanas. Mosher thought to himself that the dragon ruins should be in Lake Kanas. Uncle Chi said to Mosher again, "If you want to go to Lake Kanas, I suggest that you go in 2 months. It starts snowing there in August every year and lasts until May of the next year. The snow hasn't melted yet." Mosher nodded to show that he understood. However, with his strength, this bit of snow was nothing. He stayed at base C4 for 4 days. At 11:00 at night on the 4th day, he signed in 1,000 drops of enhancer. After taking it, he broke through to level 6. Name, Mosher, level 6 Great Hunter, level 2 Long Nianshi, evolution path, Titan Dragon. Mosher looked at the attribute interface in his mind and was secretly happy. The reason why he stayed at base C4 for these few days was to wait for his level to increase. Since his level had increased, he planned to leave base C4 the next morning after breakfast. The base chief and the leader of the hunting group had originally come to talk to Mosher about something. But when they saw that Mosher was about to leave, they couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Mr. Mo, are you leaving now?" Mosher knew what they were thinking and said, "Don't worry. Don't worry, no infected creatures will attack base C4 in the future." After saying that, he didn't say another word. He turned around and walked out of the base. Chapter 156. The chief of base C4 and the leader of the hunters looked at Mosher's back as he left. They pondered over Mosher's words. After a while, the leader of the hunters asked in surprise, Mr. Mo said that there will be no more infected creatures attacking the base. What does that mean? Of course, he knew the literal meaning of that sentence. But there was one point that he could not understand. The fact that the infected creatures would not attack the base meant that they were either afraid of Mr. Mo, or they were all wiped out by Mr. Mo. In their opinion, the possibility of them being afraid of him was very small. The infected creatures were all bloodthirsty and cruel. What was there to be afraid of? Did that mean that they were all wiped out by Mr. Mo? How many infected creatures were there in the vicinity of base C4, and they were all wiped out by Mr. Mo just like that? The chief of the base pondered for a moment, and his eyes lit up as he turned to the leader of the hunters. Leader Korban immediately organized the hunters and psychokinesis to scout out the situation within 50 kilometers of the base. Korban nodded. Yes, Chief. In the afternoon, Korban came to report to the chief. We have scouted 50 kilometers of the base and did not find any traces of infected creatures. We plan to scout further tomorrow. The chief was delighted. Sure, but be careful when you scout. The third day, the fourth day, they scouted further and further. In the end, they found that there were no infected creatures within 300 kilometers of the base. When the news reached the base, the entire base was in an uproar. It had been 30 years since Virus X swept across the world. In these 30 years, the area around the base was a death zone. Other than the powerful hunters and psychokinesis who could occasionally go out, no one else had left the base. People under the age of 30 had never set foot on the land outside the base. Although they sometimes dreamed of the day when the infected creatures would be wiped out, and human civilization could be restored. But it was just a dream. The world situation was getting worse, and the infected creatures were getting stronger at a faster rate. Whether they could live until tomorrow was a question. How could they set foot on the land outside? But now that Mr. Mo had appeared, all the infected creatures within 300 kilometers of the base had been wiped out. And this was only the area they scouted. Perhaps the infected creatures outside their range had also been wiped out. This made them see the hope of human civilization being restored for the first time. She really didn't know how Mr. Mo did it. At the same time, everyone was filled with respect for Mr. Mo. Mr. Mo's strength was actually so powerful. This was completely beyond their understanding. After Mo Sure left base C4, he headed towards Lake Kanas. With his speed, it would take him less than a minute to cover a distance of 400 kilometers. At this time, he had already arrived at the top of the mountain beside Lake Kanas. It was snowing heavily. However, the blood that fell to the ground was not white. Instead, it was red. It was as red as blood. Looking down from here, the entire Kanas lake was about 20 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. It was shaped like a giant worm. However, Mo Sure could not see the surface of the lake at all. This was because the entire surface of Lake Kanas was covered by giant sarcomas with a diameter of more than 5 meters. The surface of the tumor was covered with thick black blood vessels. Every sarcoma was like a human heart, beating rhythmically. This made Lake Kanas look like a giant blood-red worm. Around the lake, Sanguisurincus radiated in all directions. All the nearby mountains were covered with blood-red vines. Even the knowledgeable Mo Sure could not help but frown slightly when he saw this scene. The entire Lake Kanas, which was more than 20 square kilometers, had become a mother nest. This was the largest mother nest he had ever seen. One could imagine how strong the creatures in this mother nest were. His black pupils gradually turned blood red. The blood dragon's eye was activated. He looked at the mother nest. In the past, the blood demon's eye could not see inside the mother nest. However, after the upgrade, the blood dragon's eye could see through the surface and see the essence. It could easily see through the sarcomas on the mother nest and see the situation inside the mother nest. He saw that Lake Kanas was inside the mother nest. However, the water of Lake Kanas was no longer blue or dark green. It was blood red. The blood pool that he had seen in other mother nests in the past had expanded into a blood lake here. A huge blood lake of more than 20 square kilometers. Just one look was enough to make one's hair stand on end. However, in the blood pool, there was no sign of the infected creature. He directly opened the mother nest's consciousness. He connected to the huge mother nest's consciousness. From the mother nest's consciousness, he saw the huge creature in the mother nest. It was a huge creature that was more than 300 meters long and had a thin and long body. Species, Mutant Mosasaurus, Level 2 Super Mutant. Mo sure knew that the Mosasaurus did exist during the dinosaur era. It was a large predator in the sea. However, it was said to be extinct in the past. Now it seemed that not only was it not extinct, but it had always existed. The so-called Kanas water monster was actually this Mosasaurus. In the past, when Mo sure connected to the mother nest's consciousness to search for super mutant creatures, he did not find this mutant Mosasaurus. It seemed that it had only become a level 2 super mutant beast recently. It seemed that the larger the blood pool in the mother nest, the faster the strength of the infected creature would increase. Unfortunately, no matter how fast it increased, it would not be as fast as Mo sure's strength. His dragon thought moved. Bang! All the huge sarcomas on the surface of the lake that was more than 20 square kilometers exploded at the same time. Imagine, thousands of huge sarcomas exploding at the same time. How spectacular would that scene be? In the blood-red snowflakes that filled the sky, the sarcomas burst into blood-red waves that filled the sky. It was like 10,000 horses galloping and 10,000 corpses roaring. The momentum was terrifying. Then, the blood-red waves that filled the sky fell into the blood lake below. The surface of the lake that was more than 20 square kilometers rose by more than half a meter. At the same time, thousands of blood-red tentacles quickly crawled out of the blood lake. These blood-red tentacles crawled to the side of the lake and directly stood up out of thin air. They formed something that looked like blood vessels. Then, on these blood vessels, sarcomas began to grow again. The blood lake was actually rebuilding the mother nest on its own. The speed of rebuilding was extremely fast. At this speed, it would probably take less than 10 minutes for the entire huge mother nest to be completely repaired. At the same time, the ground under Mo sure's feet suddenly shook. His feet tapped lightly. His whole body bounced up into the air. The moment he bounced up, the mountain peak he was standing on just now collapsed with a loud bang. Huge mountain rocks were scattered in all directions. They smashed into the trees at the foot of the mountain, causing them to snap continuously. Huge rocks rolled down the mountain, causing red snow to fill the sky. From the crack of the mountain peak, a huge Sanguisurincus with a diameter of more than 50 meters jumped out. Then, on this huge Sanguisurincus, thousands of Sanguisurincus with a diameter of more than a meter grew out. It looked like the blood-red roots of a huge tree had extended out of the ground and were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws in the air. It was like a huge blood tree monster that attacked Mo sure. Chapter 157. The Sanguisurincus was now more than 300 meters tall. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it attacked Mo sure. The blood dragon wings on Mo sure's back quickly spread out. The long way was released from his body. Roar! The moment the long way was released, there seemed to be a faint dragon's roar that spread in all directions. If one listened carefully, it seemed that there was no dragon's roar at all. But all the infected creatures within a 50-kilometer radius trembled when they heard the dragon's roar. Under the blood lake of Kanas, there was a huge crack at a depth of nearly 200 meters. Under this crack, there was a natural cave that was even deeper than Lake Kanas. In this cave, a 350-meter-long creature was sleeping. But at this moment, when it heard the dragon's roar, its eyelids suddenly opened. The next moment, it swung its huge tail and quickly passed through the crack, swimming towards the surface of the lake. At this moment, the huge Sanguisurincus, which was pouncing towards Immortal, suddenly stopped in its tracks when it heard the dragon's roar. It was also at this moment that Immortal's dragon consciousness trembled slightly. Boom 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 boom, the 300-meter-tall Sanguisurincus slowly exploded from top to bottom. Like a building in an earthquake, it collapsed with a loud bang. However, at this moment, the second mountain trembled and collapsed as well. Then, the third, the fourth, all the mountains near Lake Kaunas collapsed with a loud bang. Within a 50-kilometer radius, the sky was suddenly filled with red snow. It was like a snow-colored tsunami that kept rushing in all directions. From every collapsed mountain, a 50-meter-thick Sanguisurincus stretched out. Dozens of Sanguisurincus stretched into the sky and grew thousands of branches. It actually covered an area of more than 80 kilometers around Lake Kaunas. And Immortal was covered in it. It seemed that Immortal had nowhere to run. However, he didn't care about the Sanguisurincus that were charging at him. Instead, he lowered his head to look at the mother nest, which had already been rebuilt by a 10th. The mother nest was the source of energy for these Sanguisurincus. As long as the mother nest wasn't destroyed, more Sanguisurincus would be born. The method to destroy the mother nest was simple. 10 psychokinesis meteorites falling down could easily do that. But when Immortal connected to the broodmother's consciousness, he saw a crack at the bottom of the blood lake. He guessed that the dragon ruins were below the crack. If it was bombarded with telekinesis meteorites, the entrance to the dragon ruins below might collapse. At that time, it would be very troublesome to enter again. Looks like I can only use that. Thinking of this, Immortal's mind moved. A small virus had already appeared in the palm of his right hand. This was the Virus 0 that Immortal had obtained from signing in before. According to the system, this was a super powerful virus that could easily wipe out a country. Of course, the virus couldn't be seen with the naked eye. But Immortal could see it with the blood dragon's eye. This small virus was actually emitting a corpse aura that reached the sky. As soon as this virus appeared, within a radius of 100 kilometers, it was enveloped in blood-red corpse aura in an extremely short period of time. The corpse aura was 100 times denser than the corpse aura in Emperor Qin's mausoleum. Even without using the blood dragon's eye, he could easily see this shocking corpse aura. Immortal couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock on his face. The corpse aura of a small virus was actually so terrifying. However, when Immortal injected a trace of his dragon's will into the Virus 0, the surrounding corpse aura instantly disappeared. To be exact, it didn't disappear. Instead, under the control of Immortal's dragon's will, all the corpse aura was retracted into the Virus 0. Then, his dragon's will moved. This small virus flew towards the blood lake below. If others were present, they wouldn't be able to see what Immortal did. Even a psychic master wouldn't be able to detect a small virus. But only Immortal knew that this was definitely a time bomb more terrifying than a nuclear bomb. Soon, the Virus 0 disappeared into the lake water. At this moment, the Virus 0 was still in a dormant state. Immortal's dragon's will moved, and the dragon's will in the Virus 0 immediately surged. The Virus 0 was instantly activated. The next moment, the Virus 0 directly invaded the Virus X next to it. It instantly swallowed the Virus X and transformed it into the Virus 0. Then, this Virus 0, which was one size bigger, split into two. These two Virus 0s then devoured the other two Virus XS nearby, and then became 4. Then, 4 turned into 8, 8 turned into 16, 16 turned into 32, in the end, it turned into tens of millions of Virus 0. At the same time, Immortal's dragon's will also replicated tens of millions of Virus X's will. Within each virus, there was a weak dragon's will. And if he could control these dragon's wills, he could also control these Virus 0. With a thought, the Virus 0 could stop spreading. With another thought, all the virus zero could instantly die. At this moment, from a macroscopic point of view, the center of the blood lake turned purplish-black in a very short period of time. Then, this purplish-black quickly spread to the surroundings. In just a few seconds, the entire blood lake turned purplish-black. At the same time, the sanguisurincus around the blood lake were also quickly dyed purplish-black. On all the surrounding mountains, the 50-meter thick sanguisurincus were also instantly dyed purplish-black. The sanguisurincus that covered a radius of tens of kilometers were all dyed purplish-black in just a few seconds and turned into wisteria. The sanguisurincus that attacked Immortal earlier were all frozen in mid-air. They were motionless. At the same time, around the blood lake, all the animals and plants within a 50-kilometer radius turned purplish-black. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in just a few seconds. All the viruses in the infected bodies within a 50-kilometer radius were swallowed by the virus zero. However, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. After completing the initial shockwave-like spread, the virus zero seemed to have weakened. However, it didn't. Although it slowed down, it continued to spread outwards. Gradually, 60 kilometers, 70 kilometers, 80 kilometers. The zero virus only stopped spreading after it had spread to a radius of 100 kilometers. But was it over? It was still not over. Although the virus zero was no longer spreading on its own. But within a radius of 100 kilometers, how many animals were infected with the virus zero? They would move around and walk out of this 100-kilometer radius. They would continue to spread the virus zero to other places around. Moreover, the virus zero was extremely infectious. It could be transmitted through blood. It could be transmitted through water sources. It could be transmitted through skin contact. The most terrifying thing was that it could be transmitted through the air. In a situation where one was unprepared, there was no way to avoid it. If this virus zero was released when a country was not on guard, the country would not be able to survive. One could imagine that this country would have almost no chance of resisting. Establish an isolation zone? Develop a vaccine? Please, the virus zero wouldn't give you the time at all. When Immortal sensed this, he couldn't help but change his expression. The virus zero was even more terrifying than this. Chapter 158. Feeling the power of the zero virus, Immortal couldn't help but be shocked. The power of the zero virus was actually so terrifying. At the same time, in Lake Kaunas, which had been completely infected by the zero virus, the huge mutated mosasaur, which was more than 300 meters long, was swimming towards the lake. Its body had also been completely infected with the zero virus. At first, its skin turned purplish-black. Then, the purplish-black color invaded its body. All its blood vessels, muscles, bones, and internal organs turned purplish-black. But at this time, it didn't feel any pain. It felt the dragon's roar from before and was extremely excited. It quickly swam towards the lake. However, at this moment, Immortal's dragon will moved. Boom! Within a radius of 100 kilometers. All the animals and plants collapsed like sand sculptures. All the sanguisurincus that enveloped Immortal also collapsed like grains of sand. All the surrounding trees that had turned purplish-black also turned into powder and collapsed. All the creatures within this range turned into purplish-black powder. Even the microscopic bacteria and viruses were completely dead at this moment. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, except for Immortal, there was no other life. Looking down from above, only a huge purplish-black circle with a radius of 100 kilometers could be seen covering the ground. The mosasaur in Lake Kaunas also turned into purplish-black powder at this time and floated to the surface of the lake. The surprise in Immortal's heart couldn't help but increase a little. The power of the zero virus was far beyond his imagination. Its lethality was definitely much more terrifying than a nuclear bomb. Within the killing range, even bacteria couldn't survive. In the future, this zero virus would be his ultimate killing weapon. At this time, Mo landed on the edge of Lake Kaunas, which had turned purplish-black. Looking at the purplish-black lake, he was a little worried. The dragon ruins was more than 100 meters deep at the bottom of the lake. How should he go down? Forget it, let's sign in first. Let's see what I can sign out. System, sign in. Mo said in his mind. The system's voice quickly came frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, virus hive, sign in reward, mosasaur clone, evolution by devouring. Mo looked at the skill description in his mind. A moment later, he was secretly delighted. This sea dragon clone was very different from the virus clone from before. Sea dragon clone, the host can use the infected body to condense a sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone contains a strain of virus 0. The host's consciousness can switch between the main body and the sea dragon clone at will. The sea dragon clone carrying the 0 virus was definitely a ticking time bomb. Furthermore, his consciousness could switch back and forth between the sea dragon clone and his main body. In other words, as long as there was a sea dragon clone, then, even if his original body was killed, his consciousness could still exist in the sea dragon clone. This was a function that the previous virus clones did not possess. Mo had previously thought that if he killed all the infected creatures on land, he would no longer have a source of evolution points and would have to go to the ocean. After all, the ocean was much larger than the land. Naturally, the number of infected creatures in the ocean was much higher than the number of infected creatures on land. Now that he had the sea dragon clone, it would be much more convenient to hunt infected creatures in the ocean. As for the Devour Evolve skill, it was not meant for Mo's main body. It was meant for the sea dragon clone. Devour Evolve, the sea dragon clone can evolve by devouring infected creatures. The highest level of evolution will not exceed the host by 1 realm. The evolution points obtained by the sea dragon clone devouring infected creatures will belong to the host. After reading the skill introduction, Mo couldn't help but feel a little excited. When the sea dragon clone evolved to the limit, it could at most be 1 realm higher than him. He was now a level 6 great hunter. How strong would it be to be 1 realm higher than him? Mo couldn't help but be fascinated and asked expectantly, System, 1 realm higher than a great hunter, what realm is that? Spirit hunting? Then hunting king, hunting emperor, and hunting grandmaster? And finally hunting through the heavens? The system did not respond. Mo shook his head and sighed. You really had no temper when chatting with a system that would suddenly dive into the water at the drop of a hat. At this moment, Mo's dragon thoughts moved. The purple-black sea dragon powder floating in the lake began to slowly squirm. The powder condensed into a purple-black sanguisurincus. On top of the sanguisurincus, hundreds and thousands of tiny sanguisurincus grew. These sanguisurincus condensed into all the blood vessels in the sea dragon's body. Then on top of the blood vessels, muscles, bones, and internal organs began to slowly grow. 5 minutes later, a sea dragon finally condensed and took shape. It looked exactly the same as the sea dragon from before. It's just that its size, it was only 1 inch long. He looked at it with the blood dragon's eye. Species, sea dragon, level, ordinary mutant beast, ability, devour evolve. Mo suddenly felt like cursing Brother Knife. System, you call this a sea dragon? It's not even as long as my little bug, okay? It's only this long, and you want to devour it and evolve it? Who do you want it to devour? You should be thanking the heavens if you don't get devoured, okay? Even someone like Mo who usually didn't talk much, had a rare outburst of complaints. However, the system was still silent. Mo sighed again. He really didn't have a temper with this kind of diving dog. With a thought, he took out the dragon's cave. His main body entered the dragon's cave, and the dragon's cave instantly disappeared. And his consciousness switched to the sea dragon's body. In this way, while his consciousness was in the sea dragon's body, his main body could still cultivate long way in the dragon's cave. And he didn't have to worry about his main body being ambushed. 3 birds with 1 stone. At this moment, Mo Shi's main body in the dragon's cave was only a shell left. His consciousness controlled the sea dragon to swim under the surface of the lake. Speaking of which, turning into a sea dragon really felt a bit strange. This feeling was completely different from observing the world through the perspective of his virus clone. The body of the virus clone was its own attribute. And now Mo Shi felt that this sea dragon was himself, and he was the sea dragon. I am in you, and you are in me. He controlled the sea dragon clone with his mind and dived more than 100 meters. He came to the crack at the bottom of the lake. According to Mo Shi's personality in the past, he would have used his dragon consciousness to investigate first, and then set up a virtual sentry tower. Finally, he would use the virus clone to investigate. But now that he had the sea dragon clone, there was no need to go through so much trouble. Anyway, even if the sea dragon clone died, his consciousness could be switched back to his main body. He himself wouldn't be affected in any way. He controlled the sea dragon clone and swam into the dragon's cave below. His dragon consciousness probed the surroundings. He saw that there was a different world under this crack. It was the size of several football fields. Mo Shi had been looking forward to finding some treasures in the dragon ruins. But how could there be so many treasures to find? The draconic ruins was still empty. It wasn't even as good as the previous 2 dragon ruins. In those 2 dragon ruins, there were at least dragon claw marks and dragon bones. There wasn't even a dragon's fart here. But Mo Shi wasn't disappointed. With the sign-in system, even if there were no treasures, he could sign them out in minutes. System, sign in. Mo Shi said in his mind. Chapter 159. Although he had already signed in there just now. But this was a special place where he could sign in twice in a row. Mo Shi said in his mind, System, sign in. The system's voice quickly sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Dragon Ruins, sign in reward, Black Ice Dragon Breath, sign in reward, Basic Demon Binding Rope, sign in reward, Basic Black Ice Demon Slaying Blade. The Black Ice Dragon Breath was a skill. The Black Ice Dragon Breath that it spat out could freeze 100 miles. It sounded awesome. But this Black Ice Dragon Breath was the same as the Red Flame Dragon Breath. It required energy to activate. Mo Shi didn't have much energy apart from the little energy he obtained from the Plague Dragon's Dragon Will. This was also the reason why he hadn't used the Red Flame Dragon Breath until now. The Demon Binding Rope was also a skill. It used the dragon will to control the flesh and blood of the infected creature and condensed a blood-red chain. It could bind any infected creature for a short period of time, regardless of level. Of course, the higher the level of the infected creature, the shorter the effect of the Demon Binding Rope. Currently, Mo Shi already had 2 items that ignored level. One was the Titan Dragon Scale. It could ignore the opponent's level and perform a defense. The other was this basic Demon Binding Rope. It ignored the opponent's level and performed a binding. Something that ignored the opponent's level was the most heaven-defying thing. Finally, Mo Shi looked at the Black Ice Demon Slaying Blade. It looked even cooler than the Bloodthirsty Corpse Slaying Blade. It was blood red. It was so red that it seemed like blood could drip out. From the tip of the blade to the hilt, it had a small S-shaped shape. The tip of the blade was extremely sharp. There was an S-shaped hollow line on the blade that stuck to the blade and extended from the tip of the blade to the hilt. On the back of the blade, there were more than 10 saw teeth. Overall, it looked full of technological and mysterious. The functions of the Black Ice Demon Slaying Blade and the Bloodthirsty Corpse Slaying Blade were somewhat similar. They could both absorb the blood of infected creatures and transform it into strong acids. However, the Black Ice Demon Slaying Blade had an additional, ice-sealing, function. When it hit anything, it could instantly release a large amount of ice energy. It would cause an ice-sealing effect. Even if it encountered a powerful mutated beast, it couldn't be directly frozen, but it could cause a reduction effect. In this way, they would corrode from the inside and freeze from the outside. It would catch the enemy off guard. Moreover, the Mystic Ice Devil Slayer Blade had a growth attribute. It would absorb the host's evolution points and slowly grow. Mo took a closer look at the weapon description. He discovered that it only needed to absorb 100 evolution points every day. For the wealthy Mo, this was not a problem at all. It must be known that he had more than 6 billion evolution points. Moreover, the Zero virus had killed so many infected creatures. His evolution points were nearing 7 billion. A mere 100 evolution points was nothing. After signing in, Mo once again used Dragon's Will to carefully explore the dragon ruins. After confirming that there was nothing else, he moved his mind. He switched his consciousness back to his main body. As for the little azure dragon, he would leave it here for now. Just now, Mo's Virus Zero had killed all the creatures in the lake. It would be impossible for this little Mosasaurus to devour and evolve in the short term. After coming out of the dragon cave, Mo looked around. At this moment, the snow dancing in the sky was no longer blood red. It had returned to its normal white color. Heavy snow filled the sky and fluttered down. It gradually enveloped the purple-black land and the lake. It would not be long before this place became a pure world again. Mo did not use the dragon shadow step. Instead, he condensed the blood dragon wings. While hurrying through the sky, he admired the world that was gradually covered in silver. That afternoon, Mo returned to base C1. As he walked towards the corpse field, he pondered in his heart. There were 3 things he had to do next. First, let the virus clones slowly clean up the infected creatures in Wuxia. The zombies and mutated beasts in Wuxia, plus the infected plants around the mother's nest, had a total of tens of billions of infected creatures. Even if Mo had 10 virus clones, it would be a long work to clean them up. I'll just let my doppelgangers get busy. Second, go to Emperor Qin's mausoleum and sign in. Emperor Qin's mausoleum, there should be something good there. Third, go to the Yellow River 200 kilometers away, condense a Mosasaurus, and let it slowly devour and evolve. However, Mo had been fighting and killing for a while. He had to take a break. Otherwise, if he kept fighting and killing without relaxing, he was really afraid that he would go crazy. And the comfortable days in the corpse field were the most suitable for relaxation. It was very quiet here, and no one came to disturb him. Here, he had Happy to take care of him. Every day after he woke up, he could sit on the recliner under the grape trellis and bask in the sun. Drink some tea. Talk to Happy. In the apocalypse, was there anything more pleasant than this? When Mo walked into the corpse field, Happy was reading a book under the grape trellis, The Old Man and the Sea. After Mo left, the base chief was afraid that Happy would be lonely and bored alone, so he specially asked someone to find it in the library and asked Little Doe to send it over. Happy was reading very seriously, so much so that she didn't notice Mo walking in. The warm sunlight shone through the newly grown grape leaves and onto her body. The whole scene gave Mo a beautiful feeling. Mo couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Outside the base, there were countless infected creatures, blood, and slaughter. It was like the dark side of the world. After experiencing too much darkness, when he returned to the base and saw this scene, it was as if a ray of light suddenly illuminated the dark world. After a while, Immortal came back to his senses. At that moment, Happy flipped to the last page. After reading it, she let out a long sigh. She looked over the wall beside her and looked at the blue sky, as if she was thinking about something. The old man in the book deeply shocked her. An old man with a weak body fought alone in the sea against a group of sharks. In such a desperate situation, the old man had a tenacious will and an unyielding spirit. It would definitely shock every reader's heart. In the apocalypse, this kind of spirit was definitely a shot to the heart. Everyone in a desperate situation should read this book. Unfortunately, people in the apocalypse only cared about survival. How could they calm down and read? After a long while, she came back to her senses. She looked away from the courtyard. At that moment, she noticed Immortal. She immediately stood up in surprise. She didn't even have time to put down the book in her hands. She quickly jogged over from under the grape trellis. Unexpectedly, because her attention was on Immortal, she tripped on the uneven brick floor. She immediately crashed into Immortal. She couldn't help but press her small face into Immortal's arms. Even though there was a t-shirt between them, Immortal still felt his chest burn. The residual heat did not stop and seeped into his heart. Happy's face was burning, and her heart was beating. Immortal couldn't help but rub Happy's head and smile gently. "Happy, you've learned bad things. Let me see how many people will read The Old Man and the Sea after reading this chapter. Raise your hand." There aren't many words in this book, but it can bring great shock to people's hearts. Anyway, the author was shocked at that time. Chapter 160. When Happy saw that Immortal had returned, he was naturally very happy. He fetched some water and a towel for Immortal. Then, he went to make tea for Immortal. Immortal took out his bloodthirsty corpse slayer and flattened the corner of the brick that tripped Happy. Then, he flattened the other corners of the bricks that were exposed in the courtyard. He did not want to see Happy fall. Happy naturally understood Immortal's thoughts. He could not help but feel a little touched. After Immortal finished doing all this, he reached out to stop him. "Happy, don't be busy. Come and talk to me." Happy pressed Immortal down on the recliner. Although she could not speak, her eyes were filled with the concern of a young girl towards her first love. Immortal understood what she meant. "Big brother Immo, you just came back. Sit down and rest first. If you need anything, just tell Happy." Immortal killed until the sky turned dark outside the base. He felt that his heart was as hard as steel. Sometimes, he even felt that he was no different from those bloodthirsty and brutal infected creatures. But at that moment, he realized that his heart seemed to have melted by Happy. He was still a human. Immortal thought of something as he watched Happy busying himself with the tasks. Over the years, he had injected Happy with Titan Dragon Enhancer and Brain Cell Enhancer. He had also used Psychokinesis Blessing on her. If it were anyone else, they would have long been the strongest hunter or psychokinesis in the base. But Happy's body did not react. What was the reason? Coincidentally, he had obtained the Blood Dragon's Eye previously, and he could see through appearances to see the essence of things. When he thought of this, Immortal's pupils began to turn red. Soon, his pupils turned blood red. The next moment, he saw Happy's attributes. Species, human, level, oracle, unawakened, ability. Immortal's gaze froze. Oracle? Based on the name alone, it seemed to be very strong. Isn't there a Skywalker in Star Wars? But what ability does this Oracle have? Immortal asked the system in his mind. The system replied, Oracle, also known as the Silencer. Hearing this, Immortal suddenly understood. It was no wonder then why Happy could not speak. She was the so-called Silencer. The enhancers that he had injected into her, as well as the telekinesis blessings, could not make her stronger at all. The reason was naturally because she was already a Heaven's Oracle. Mo asked the system again. Even Heaven's Oracle's ability can't tell? The system replied, she hasn't awakened as a Heaven's prophet, so it's natural that I can't see her abilities. Mo was speechless. Then what do I need the blood dragon's eye for? The system was silent. Mo couldn't help but complain. You're so quiet, but you're actually the silent one. However, Heaven's Sayer and the Silencer reminded Mo of a passage from the Analects of Confucius that he had memorized in the past. Confucius said, I have no words to express my desire. Zigong said, if the child does not speak, how can the child explain? The master said, what is the heaven talking about? What does the 4 seasons do, what does the heaven say? In other words, it means, Confucius said, I'm tired. I don't want to bother with you guys anymore. Zigong was instantly stunned. Teacher, you have to be more careful. If you don't say anything, how are we disciples going to write the Analects of Confucius? Are we just going to make it up? Confucius was exasperated at his failure to meet his expectations. What did the heavens say? The 4 seasons continue to operate, and all living things continue to grow as usual. What did the heavens say? Zigong immediately withered. From the looks of it, this Heaven's Oracle was an incredible identity. It was just that it had not awakened yet. Mo asked in his mind again. System, how do I awaken a Heaven's Oracle? The system finally spoke again. When it's time to awaken, it will naturally awaken. Get lost. Mo cursed. The system was as good as not saying anything. At this moment, Happy had already finished her work. She saw that Mo had been staring at her. She couldn't help but blush. Her walk was a little unnatural. She came in front of Mo and looked at Mo with a pair of bright eyes. It was as if she was saying, Brother Mo, why are you always staring at Happy? With a smile on his face, Mo took Happy's hand and said something very eloquent. Seeing Happy happy, I'm happy. For the next 10 days, Mo stayed in the base. He accompanied Happy to feed the zombies, raise the pigs, and talk. It was a little blissful. Of course, with his current identity, he didn't need to feed the zombies and raise the pigs. But what he wanted was the feeling of the two of them working together. In these 10 days, those virus clones had also obtained a lot of evolution points for Mo. His total evolution points had already broken through 7 billion. That night, Mo waited for Happy to fall asleep before he left the corpse farm. After resting for 10 days, it was time to move around. Using the dragon shadow steps, he only took 20 steps. He arrived at the mouth of the Yellow River, which was more than 200 kilometers away. Because plants covered almost every place outside the base, soil erosion was greatly reduced. Therefore, the Yellow River had long since become clear. The river was much bigger than before the apocalypse. Mo stood by the riverbank. Under the moonlight, white waves rolled down. It was like 10,000 horses galloping, but also like thunder rumbling. The momentum was extremely terrifying. Those who had not personally been to the mouth of the Huku, even if they had seen the mouth of the Huku thousands of times in videos, would never be able to understand the shock that struck their hearts. Just as Mo was admiring the Huku waterfall under the moonlight. In the hotel that had been abandoned for nearly 30 years behind him, more than 10 zombies saw Mo, a human. They immediately roared and pounced on Mo. Mo turned around and looked at these ordinary zombies. From the remaining strips of cloth on their bodies, they should have been hotel attendants. Mo's dragon thought moved slightly. These zombies were lifted up by his dragon thought and moved above the waterfall. Then, they exploded into a bloody mist. The bloody mist slowly gathered and formed a sanguisurincus. Sanguisurincus grew blood vessels, flesh, bones, and skin. In the end, it formed a mosasaurus that was as thick as a finger and 1 inch long. Sure originally thought that the more flesh and blood of infected creatures used to condense the mosasaurus clone, the bigger the mosasaurus clone would be. He didn't expect it to be so big. But this was only the initial state. Let's see if its devouring evolution skill was strong or not. Soon, the mosasaurus was thrown into the waterfall. The mosasaurus was instantly swallowed by the waterfall. It was involuntarily swept away by the river and quickly moved downstream. Sure waited for it to be washed to a flatter section of the river before entering the dragon cave. At the same time, he switched his consciousness into the mosasaurus clone. This mosasaurus clone was still too weak. It was just an ordinary mutant beast. And even if it could use dragon thought, with the strength of its brain cells, it couldn't withstand too much dragon thought. Dragon thought was limited to a radius of 1 kilometer. And at this time, dragon thought couldn't be used to attack at all. As long as dragon thought attacked, its head would explode. It's so King weak. Sure sighed and thought to himself. It was too lazy to move, so it floated downstream along the river. It didn't take long for it to come to a pool of water with a slower flow. He probed with dragon thought. It detected that there were many mutant beasts in the water here. A mutated tadpole more than a foot long swam around in the puddles on the shore. A half-meter-long mutant loach drilled into the mud at the bottom of the river. There were also 2 mutated carps more than 5 meters long. They opened their huge mouths, revealing their jagged teeth, and ran amok in the water. Chapter 161. Sure used his dragon's will to explore this area of water. This was a completely new battlefield for him. He had also tried to return to his main body and use his dragon's will to kill these infected creatures. Then, he would let the sea dragon clone devour them. But the system quickly poured cold water on him. Devour evolution skill. It can only devour living creatures. Sure could only helplessly give up on this idea. At present, in the entire water area, only the mutated tadpoles in the puddles on the shore were the weakest. No, it was clearly his clone that was the weakest. It was impossible to devour this mutated tadpole. Helpless, Sure could only continue to explore the surroundings with his dragon's will. After searching twice more, he still couldn't find a mutated beast that he could devour. Ck. Sure couldn't help but curse in his heart. But as soon as he said this, Sure's eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, Ck. There should be a nest near this area of water. That was why the occasional plants here had turned blood red. Blood red plants could also be considered infected creatures. Thinking of this, Sure scanned the area with his dragon's will. When there were no mutated beasts nearby. Then, he quietly swam out and came under a blood-red aquatic plant on the shore. The aquatic plant wasn't big, only an inch long. It was suitable for him to devour. Sure opened his mouth. Although the sea dragon clone was small, the 2 rows of teeth in its mouth were extremely sharp. It easily devoured the aquatic plant. Not long after it swallowed it, the body of the sea dragon clone changed. There was a constant cracking sound coming from its body. Its bones kept getting thicker and longer. Its muscles were torn apart and reconstructed. In just a few minutes, it was more than 2 inches long. Sure checked the level of the sea dragon clone in his mind again. Species, sea dragon, level 1 mutated beast, ability, devour evolution. Sure was in a good mood to level up so quickly. He probed with his dragon's will and continued to search for infected aquatic plants. In this area of water, he found more than 30 infected aquatic plants. If it were other mutated beasts, even if they knew about these aquatic plants, they wouldn't dare to devour them. After all, there were mutated beasts everywhere in this area. Going out would be suicide. However, with Mo.Shi's draconic will, he could easily avoid those mutant beasts without being discovered. Half an hour later, he had already devoured more than 30 strands of seaweed. At this moment, his level had increased once again. Race, Sea Dragon, Level 2 Mutant Beast, Ability, Devour Evolution. At this moment, the Sea Dragon clone was already 1 foot long. Mo.Shi scanned the surroundings with his draconic will. There were no more infected plants for him to devour. Next, it should be the mutant tadpole in the puddle. However, he did not rashly go there. With the Sea Dragon clone's current strength, it should be able to fight the level 2 mutated tadpole on par with it. However, with Mo.Shi's cautious personality, he wouldn't take the risk unless the odds were at 10%, let alone 50%. He swam to the bottom of the river near the puddle and hid there. Long Nian had been paying attention to this mutated tadpole. It was like a boy sitting in the back row who had been paying attention to a girl he had a crush on in class. After about 20 minutes, the mutated tadpole finally quieted down. Finally, it slowly fell asleep. Mo.Shi waited for more than 10 minutes until it fell asleep. Then, he found a good angle and swam upstream from the bottom of the river. Its tail swayed quickly, bringing a huge propulsion force. It pushed him away from the river. It drew a perfect arc in the air. Plop, it plunged into the mud next to the puddle. Damn, this is so awkward. After all, he wasn't familiar with the Sea Dragon clone and didn't have a good grasp of the angle. Fortunately, the tadpole was already dead asleep. Mo.Shi twisted his body and pulled his head out of the mud. His fins kept propping up, allowing his body to roll into the puddle. With a plop, water splashed everywhere. The mutated tadpole was finally awakened. In the blink of an eye, Mo.Shi controlled the Sea Dragon clone, opened its mouth, and bit the tadpole's head. Its sharp teeth pierced into the mutated tadpole's round head. The mutated tadpole struggled frantically. But Mo.Shi didn't let go at all. After a while, the mutated tadpole no longer had any strength. Except for occasional twitches, it didn't move anymore. Only then did Mo.Shi control the Sea Dragon clone and eat it in big mouthfuls. Of course, as a human, Mo.Shi still couldn't accept swallowing mutated beasts. He temporarily switched his consciousness back to his main body. Without Mo.Shi's control, the Sea Dragon clone only had the instinct to devour. It swallowed the mutated tadpole in big mouthfuls. Mo.Shi waited for it to finish swallowing before returning to the Sea Dragon's body. It was also at this moment that the notification of the Sea Dragon clone's upgrade came in his mind. Species, Sea Dragon, Level 3 Mutated Beast, Ability, Evolution by Devouring. At the same time, the body of the Sea Dragon clone once again made a muffled sound. Its bones continued to thicken and lengthen. Its muscles continued to tear and reorganize. After a while, its body length had reached half a meter. At this moment, Mo.Shi's dragon senses swept across the nearby waters. There were more than 50 mutated tadpoles around. These mutated tadpoles were basically level 2 mutated beasts. Only one of the mutated tadpole kings had reached level 3. Mo.Shi had the advantage of level against these ordinary mutated tadpoles and easily swallowed them all. He leveled up again. He, who was at level 4, could completely crush the level 3 mutated tadpole king. After devouring these tadpoles, he went to the river to devour the level 4 mutated loaches. This cycle repeated itself. In one night, Mo.Shi's Sea Dragon clone had been upgraded to a level 7 mutated beast. Its body length had also reached about 3 meters. The pleasure of leveling up really made him feel very happy. This speed was much faster than other mutated beasts leveling up. Seeing that the sky was brightening in the east, Mo.Shi was also a little sleepy. At this time, there was only one level 7 mutated carp left in the entire water area. And more than 30 level 6 mutated toads. It would probably take a few more hours to deal with these guys. Mo had been devouring all night and was so sleepy that he couldn't even open his eyes. Under the investigation of his dragon senses, he found a level 6 mutated toad. He let the sea dragon clone devour the mutated toad and occupy its nest. Then, his consciousness returned to his main body. He took a step and ran towards the base. Back at the base, Mo slept for the whole day. When it was time for dinner, Happy brought back food from the cafeteria, but Mo didn't come out to eat. Happy couldn't help but worry when she saw that Mo didn't even come out to eat. She came to the door of Mo's room several times. But when she heard the snoring sound coming from Mo's room, she was relieved. Maybe Brother Mo went to do something again at night. In short, it was fine as long as Brother Mo was fine. Mo didn't wake up until the afternoon. After waking up, his first thought was to control the sea dragon clone to devour. It was like a child addicted to playing games. When you played all night and rose from bronze to gold, the next night, you would naturally be energized and want to continue to play platinum, diamond. Chapter 162. Mo had originally planned to sign in at Emperor Qin's mausoleum today. But at this moment, he was addicted to devouring. As soon as he woke up, he wanted to continue using his clone to devour and evolve. If it weren't for the fact that he was so hungry, he would have gone there long ago. Seeing that Mo had woken up, Happy hurriedly heated up the food again. Now, the base had provided them with all kinds of daily necessities. They even had a microwave, an electric cooker, and so on. They even had a luxury home appliance like a refrigerator. One had to know that in the entire base, only the hunting group and the cafeteria had one. In order to save electricity, even the base chief didn't use a refrigerator. The food they ate was also specially made for them by the cafeteria. Bread, cake, twice-cooked pork, roasted chicken, and so on. Even the base chief and the leader of the hunting group couldn't eat it. This wasn't requested by Mo and Happy, but by the base chief who specially prepared it for Mo. Although the base didn't do this kind of thing. But it also depended on the person. Mo had saved the base from danger several times. If it weren't for Mo, they would have died several times. Therefore, they had no objections to Mo having all kinds of privileges. Not only did they have no objections, but they were even very happy. After all, Mo had saved them so many times, but he had never asked for anything from them. They wanted to thank him, but they had no way to do so. This made them feel very apologetic. Now, if they could do something insignificant for Mo, it would lessen the guilt in their hearts a little. They were naturally happy. After dinner, Mo chatted with Happy for a while, then couldn't wait to go back to his room. He was like a boy who left his girlfriend aside for a game. Now that the sea dragon clone had been condensed, he didn't need to let his main body run to the Yellow River. With a thought, his mind switched to the clone's body on the Yellow River. But when he opened his eyes, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. It turned out that the two mutated carps had unknowingly found their way into his nest. They were devouring the sea dragon's body. Although the sea dragon struggled with all its might, without Mo's mind, it was still no match for the two mutated carps. A third of its body had already been eaten. The entire lair was dyed red with blood. At this moment, a mutant carp opened its bloody mouth and bit down on the Mosasaurus's head. Mo was enraged when he saw this. His dragon sense spread out. The two mutated carps struggled painfully for a few days after being attacked by the dragon's thoughts. They quickly turned around and dived into the river. Mo also had a headache. After this body rose to level 7, it could slightly withstand a trace of draconic will. However, when attacking, it would also cause a lot of damage to his head. After the two mutated carps escaped, Mo looked back at the remaining 2/3 of the body and smiled bitterly. I was too careless. I should have brought this clone back last night. However, neither his personal storage nor his system backpack could contain living creatures. Even if he brought it back, he wouldn't have anywhere to put it. It seemed that he had to find a way to settle down the sea dragon clone before he left tonight. At this time, he took out a bottle of recovery potion, crushed the bottle with his sharp teeth, and swallowed the potion with difficulty. The wound on his back quickly healed. The flesh and blood around the wound were wriggling. 5 minutes later, the wound was completely healed. He glanced at the bottom of the river. It wouldn't be long before the 2 mutated carps became food in his stomach. Next, he spent more than half an hour devouring the dozens of mutated toads. He successfully rose to level 8. His body length also directly reached 6 meters. Being at level 8, he had a complete level advantage over the 2 level 7 carps. Moreover, at level 8, he had already become an overlord in this water area. He activated his dragon sense and detected the 2 mutated carps, who were swaggering by at the bottom of the river. Immortal immediately swung his tail and quickly swam toward the 2 mutated carps. The 2 mutated carps saw Immortal's sea dragon clone and couldn't help but feel fear. They still remembered the huge pressure emitted by this strange fish just now, which almost crushed their heads. And they had clearly eaten a lot of this strange fish just now. How did it recover so quickly? In horror, they turned around and fled. However, could they escape? At level 7, they were much smaller than Immortal, who was at level 8. They were also much slower. Immortal easily caught up with a mutated crocodile and opened his huge mouth. Crack! He directly bit off the tail of the mutated carp. Then he ignored it and continued to chase another carp. He slapped it with his tail. Slap! The mutated carp was directly slapped more than 2 meters away, dizzy and disoriented. Then, Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone to bite the head of a mutated carp and bite off its head. It turned around and caught up with the other mutated carp that was fleeing, biting it to death. After devouring these 2 mutated carps, the sea dragon clone had reached level 9. Its body length had also reached nearly 9 meters. At this time, there was nothing in this water area that could compete with it. Then, Immortal's consciousness left it, allowing it to devour freely. Early the next morning, when Immortal woke up, his consciousness returned to the body of the sea dragon clone. He found that it had devoured almost all the infected creatures in the entire water area that night. Because the mutated sea dragon had the ability to devour and evolve, everything it swallowed would be converted into the energy it needed for evolution in a short time. Therefore, no matter how much it swallowed, it would not explode. At this time, the mutated sea dragon's body length had reached 10 meters. Its level had also reached level 10. As long as it leveled up one more time, it would become a strong mutated beast. However, almost all the infected creatures in this water area had been devoured by it. Immortal controlled its body and swam downstream. He would not let go of all the infected creatures he encountered along the way, from large level 7 mutated beasts to small level 1 mutated beasts. It didn't take long for his telekinesis to detect that in front of him, a tributary had been formed because the river had risen a lot more than before. It flowed into a depression in the mountain. After a careful investigation with his telekinesis, he found that this was a reservoir. Under the morning sun, the reservoir was sparkling. On the surface, it looked calm. But when Immortal scanned it with his dragon telekinesis, he found that under the water, there were actually turbulent waves. There were a lot of mutated underwater creatures in the reservoir. And their levels were not high. The highest was only level 7. Immortal was overjoyed. He controlled the sea dragon clone and entered the reservoir. It was like a wolf entering a sheep pen. The infected creatures in the reservoir fled frantically in all directions. But how could they be as fast as Immortal's sea dragon clone? It kept catching up with these infected creatures and swallowing them with its mouth open. Half an hour later, the system's voice finally sounded in Mo Shi's mind again. Level upgrade. There was no limit or bottleneck to the increase of the sea dragon's strength. In theory, as long as there were countless infected creatures, it could continue to devour and evolve. A series of muffled cracking sounds came from within its body. Its body length grew again. It reached a length of 11 meters. Its eyes had turned blood red. Species, Sea Dragon, Level 1 Strong Mutated Beast, Ability, Evolution by Devouring, Dragon Telekinesis Attack. When Mo Shi saw this, he let out a long sigh of relief. The clone could finally attack with dragon telekinesis. Chapter 163. It took only 2 days for the Sea Dragon clone to evolve from an ordinary mutant beast to a strong mutant beast. This speed far exceeded Mo Shi's expectations. At this moment, he controlled the Sea Dragon clone to continue devouring in the reservoir. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." Since he had come to the reservoir, he naturally wanted to try and see if he could sign in anything useful to the Sea Dragon clone here. Soon, the system's voice sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, reservoir, sign in reward, personal reservoir. Soon, a small reservoir model appeared in his backpack. The reservoir model looked almost exactly the same as this reservoir. A line of words appeared on it: frowny face personal reservoir, an independent space carried by the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone can enter it. It was a simple sentence. But Mo Shi's eyes lit up. This was exactly what the Sea Dragon clone needed the most right now. This personal reservoir was similar to a dragon's den. When the Sea Dragon entered the personal reservoir, the reservoir would immediately disappear. With a thought from Mo Shi, a tubular passage with a diameter of more than 20 meters appeared in front of the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone swam into the tubular passage. In the next moment, the tubular passage disappeared into the reservoir. At this moment, Mo Shi had already controlled the Sea Dragon clone to enter the personal reservoir. This personal reservoir was about the same size as the reservoirs outside. Both were the size of a football field. However, there weren't so many mutant beasts in the personal reservoir. There was only one creature, the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone was in no danger here. Then, with a thought from Mo Shi, the tubular passage appeared in the reservoir. The Sea Dragon clone left the reservoir through this tubular passage. When it came to the reservoir in reality, the tubular passage quickly disappeared. For the next day, Mo Shi let the Sea Dragon devour in the reservoir. He also tried to teach the Sea Dragon clone how to enter the personal reservoir. After the Sea Dragon clone evolved into a strong mutant beast, it was no longer a shell but had developed consciousness. When Mo Shi's consciousness controlled the Sea Dragon clone, its consciousness would give way. When Mo Shi's consciousness left the Sea Dragon clone, its original consciousness would take over the body. It took Mo Shi half an hour to teach the Sea Dragon clone how to enter and leave the personal reservoir. Only then did he feel relieved. Next, he could let this fellow devour as he pleased. With its current strength as a level 1 mutant beast, it was basically a third-rate mutant beast in the Yellow River. As long as it didn't encounter any level 2 mutant beasts, it wouldn't be in any danger. Even if it encountered them, it would be safe as long as it hid in its personal reservoir. Since this guy could rely on himself, Mo Shi's consciousness returned to his body. The next day, he went back to take a look and found that the Sea Dragon clone had become a level 2 mutant beast. Its body length had also reached 12 meters. Seeing that the Sea Dragon clone was intact, Mo Shi was relieved. Next, it was time to sign in at Emperor Qin's mausoleum. Besides, Mo Shi planned to bring Happy with him when he left this time. Since Happy was a heaven's oracle, he naturally had to let her gain more knowledge. Moreover, Wuxia was no longer a threat to him. Maybe Happy could awaken the ability of a heaven's oracle after going out and gaining experience. When Happy heard that Immortal was going to take her to the wild area, her first reaction was anticipation. The base was only so big. After living in the base for more than 20 years, who didn't want to go out and have a look? But soon, Happy shook her head. She gestured with sign language. I'm afraid I'll be a burden to Brother Immortal smiled. He patted Happy's shoulder. Don't worry, the person who can be a burden to your brother Immortal hasn't been born yet. That day, Immortal said goodbye to the leader of the corpse farm and left with Happy. The leader didn't dare to scold Immortal like before. When he heard that Immortal was leaving, he quickly said, Mr. Immortal, don't worry. Mr. Immortal, don't worry. I'll get someone to take care of the corpse farm for you. Blood dragon wings appeared on Immortal's back. He wrapped his right hand around Happy's waist, flapped his wings slightly, and soared into the sky. He controlled his speed and only flew 10 meters per second. First of all, Happy's body was just that of a normal person. If he was too fast, she might not be able to take it. Second of all, there was nothing important. He could just treat it as bringing Happy out for a vacation. Happy looked at the green world below, and her eyes were filled with curiosity. She was like a child who had just come to an unfamiliar place. It was spring. Peach blossoms could be seen below from time to time. From afar, they looked like red clouds dotting the green ground. After more than an hour, they finally arrived above Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. Immortal used Blood Dragon's eyes to look. The corpse aura here still seemed to have solidified. Immortal found it strange. Logically speaking, Qin Shi Huang was not as strong as the Zombie King. But this corpse aura seemed to be thicker than the Zombie King. There was definitely something strange about this. Just as he was thinking, a beast-like roar came from Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. Who are you? How dare you trespass into the imperial mausoleum? Immortal retracted his wings and landed in front of a green-faced zombie figurine. Happy looked at the green zombie figurine curiously. On the way here, Immortal had already told her about Qin Shi Huang. But when she saw the green-faced zombie figurine, she was still very shocked. The terracotta soldiers had really come to life. The green-faced zombie figurine recognized Immortal and said, "So, it's you." His Majesty said that you don't need to report your arrival and can enter the underground palace directly. Then, he looked at Happy beside him and said, "But she can't. I have to report to His Majesty first." Immortal nodded. The green-faced zombie figurine immediately entered the mausoleum from an entrance at the back. Around 10 minutes later, the green-faced zombie figurine returned. He made a not-so-standard hand gesture and said to Immortal and Happy, "His Majesty allows you to enter. Please come with me." Then, he turned around and led Immortal and Happy to the entrance at the back of the Imperial Mausoleum. There were 10 zombie figurines guarding the place. They entered the entrance and walked forward along the tunnel. After walking for around 50 meters, the tunnel gradually widened. There would occasionally be forks on both sides of the tunnel. There were many fist-sized holes on the stone walls on both sides of the tunnel. After Immortal used dragon's wool to investigate, he found that there were all sorts of arrows and spears in the holes. There were also many small holes on the ground of the tunnel. There was a sharp spike in each of the holes. One could imagine that if someone barged in recklessly, they would be turned into a porcupine. As they walked forward along the tunnel, there were also stone ball tunnels, poisonous insect traps, moving stone walls, and all sorts of other mechanisms. After walking for another 50 meters, the tunnel opened up. Chapter 164. From the entrance of the mausoleum, Chen Xiaoyan passed through all kinds of mechanisms and traps. After walking for more than 100 meters, the scene before him suddenly opened up. It was a huge space. This space was much bigger than the mausoleum outside. It turned out that Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum had emptied out the mausoleum. The mausoleum outside was only the tip of the iceberg. The entire space was as big as a small city. And in this huge space, there was really an underground city. According to the history books and archaeologists' reports, there was an underground palace under Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. Many palace maids, servants, and soldiers were buried with him. Now, it seemed that they had underestimated Qin Shi Huang's ambition. This was not an underground palace, but an underground city. In this underground city, all the buildings were real buildings. The houses were habitable, and there was water in the wells. There were also all kinds of terracotta figurines on the streets and in the rooms. However, these terracotta figurines were real terracotta figurines. They did not come to life like the zombie figurines. These terracotta figurines were imitating all kinds of life scenes. Some were peddling, some were hurrying, and some were eating. After Mo Shi's draconic perception scanned the area, he discovered that there were 2 terracotta figurines doing shameless things in one of the rooms. The number of terracotta figurines in the underground city was probably around 150,000 to 50,000. Some people said that Qin Shi Huang had brought his army underground even after his death. In fact, he had brought the entire city underground. As Chen Xiaolian continued forward, a majestic palace appeared. Inside the palace, there were tens of thousands of huge everlasting lamps. One could clearly see the palace. On the main gate of the palace, which was over 20 meters wide, there were 3 big seal characters, Yipang Palace. When Mo Shi was in school, he had learned the Yipang Palace. The Yipang Palace described in the book was extremely luxurious and grand. Chen Xiaolian did not expect Qin Shi Huang to bring Yipang Palace underground. Around Yipang Palace, there was a river that flowed around the palace. Within the river, there was shining mercury flowing. After entering Yipang Palace, Chen Xiaolian finally arrived at the meeting hall, Happy Palace. In the spacious hall of Happy Palace, the zombie Qin Shi Huang was sitting on the dragon throne. He was born with a majestic aura, and with the addition of the dragon throne, the domineering aura of a king was undoubtedly revealed. To his left was a figurine general with a bronze sword hanging from his waist, Butcher Bai Qi. When Bai Qi saw Mo Shi and Happy, he let out a beastly roar. "Impudent commoner, how dare you not kneel when you see His Majesty?" Mo Shi frowned slightly. "Did I give you face? The last time you scolded me, I ignored you. This time, he actually scolded me in front of my girlfriend. Do I not care about my face?" At the thought of this, he suddenly extended his dragon consciousness. Butcher Bai Qi immediately fell to his knees with a thump. He knew that this human was the culprit. With anger in his eyes, he tried to stand up. But no matter how much he struggled, it was as if a mountain was pressing down on him, and he couldn't move at all. He was just a level 2 mutated zombie. How could they resist Mo Shi's level 2 dragon will? When Qin Shi Huang saw this, he was shocked. This person actually had such a miraculous technique? With just a single glance, General Bai Qi was unable to move at all. He immediately turned his head and said to Bai Qi, "General Bai Qi, don't be rude." Then, he said to Mo Shi, "Warrior, if General Bai Qi has offended you, please forgive him." Only then did Mo Shi retract his dragon consciousness. When Bai Qi stood up and looked at Mo Shi, a hint of fear finally appeared in the eyes of the butcher. He had killed millions of enemies and was known as the God of Death, also known as the Butcher. Even if he was alone, facing thousands of enemies, he wouldn't be afraid at all. But now, facing Mo Shi, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. As the saying goes, the unknown is the most terrifying. Mo Shi's ability had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. In his eyes, this was not an ability that a human could have. Perhaps only a demon could have it. While they were talking, a crow flew in from the side door of the palace. It landed on the stone steps below Qin Shi Huang's feet. The crow let out a hoarse cry from its throat. "Your Majesty, I've found some traces of that demon Su Fu." When Mo saw this crow, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. It was as if he had seen it before. He immediately activated the blood dragon's eye and looked at the crow. Species, mutated crow, level 3, ability, heart of a general. When Mo saw this, he frowned slightly. Heart of a general? It was said that Jianghu was one of the 4 zombie progenitors. According to the legends, he was an extremely terrifying existence. How could this crow have the heart of a general? At the same time, he recognized this crow through its corpse aura. Back then, when he killed the zombie leader on the broken bridge by the dam, and the mutated owl in the blood-colored city near base C2, they all seemed to have the same corpse aura. No wonder it could come back to life after he killed it twice. But wasn't it infected with the X virus? How could it be with Qin Shi Huang, who was infected with the zombie virus? At this moment, Qin Shi Huang said to the mutated crow, "Zhao Gao, you've been working hard these days. Go and rest first. We'll talk about the demon Su Fu later." Obviously, he didn't want to talk about this in front of Mo Shi. The mutated crow nodded and said, "Yes." Then, it flapped its wings and flew out of the side door. Mo Shi was surprised. This mutated crow was actually Zhao Gao. The Zhao Gao who was pointing at a deer as a horse. It was getting more and more bizarre. After the mutated crow left, Qin Shi Huang said to Mo Shi, "Warrior, the world is in chaos and evil spirits are everywhere. It's a good opportunity to make a name for yourself. Are you really not willing to follow me on an expedition and pacify the world?" Mo Shi slowly shook his head. "I'm very lazy." With Qin Shi Huang's pride as the first emperor, persuading Mo Shi twice was already the limit. Naturally, he couldn't be as shameless as Liu Bei. He waved his hand and said, "Since that's the case, I won't force you. However, the position of general in the Qin army will always be reserved for you." Qin Shi Huang continued, "Since you've come to the Qin palace, stay for a few more days. Although the Qin palace is no longer as prosperous as before, it's also quiet. I believe you're a person who likes peace." Mo Shi nodded. "Yes." Then, Mo Shi stayed in the underground city. He admired the architectural style of the Qin palace with happy, but he also felt that it was interesting. At the same time, Mo Shi probed with his dragon's consciousness. After confirming that Qin Shi Huang didn't send anyone to monitor him, he was relieved. While walking forward, he accompanied Happy. At the same time, he said in his mind, "System, sign in." The system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum underground palace, sign in reward. Chapter 165. Mo Shi signed in at Emperor Qin's underground palace. The system's voice sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Emperor Qin's mausoleum underground palace, sign in reward, Dragon Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal, Virtual Dragon Palace, Dam. Mo Shi couldn't help but feel a little excited. The reward this time was actually a dragon palace and the Dragon Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. He had thought that he would definitely get something good from signing. He didn't expect it to be so good. The Dragon Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal was one thing, but this dragon palace was too exaggerated. And wasn't his future evolution direction a Titan dragon? It was a Western dragon. In his impression, Western dragons seemed to be kings of mountains and lived in caves. Only Eastern dragons would live in dragon palaces. Why did the system reward him with a dragon palace? He checked the two rewards in his mind. Dragon Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal produces natural pressure on dragons, regardless of level. Well, it looked very high and mighty. And it was an item that ignored the other party's level. It should be very useful after becoming a Titan dragon. But at the current stage, it didn't seem to be useful. After all, there were no living dragons or divine dragons on Earth today. Then, Immortal turned his attention to the Virtual Dragon Palace. Virtual Dragon Palace can be set up anywhere. Any creature that trains in the Dragon Palace can stimulate their potential to the greatest extent, increase the speed of body strengthening, help break through the limit, and speed up the evolution process. Well, it was indeed heaven-defying. Any creature that trained in the Dragon Palace could stimulate their potential to the greatest extent. Didn't this mean that if he set up this Virtual Dragon Palace in the base, then everyone in the base could quickly become stronger? And wasn't Happy's oracle ability not awakened yet? If she stayed in this Virtual Dragon Palace for a while, would it be possible for her to awaken her oracle ability? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look forward to it. But there was one thing that made him dissatisfied with this sign-in. The two things that he signed were temporarily useless, and the other was for others to use. He didn't seem to get anything. But at this time, a line of text appeared above the Virtual Dragon Palace. Frowny face host can receive double rewards by signing in at the Virtual Dragon Palace. Battle in the Virtual Dragon Palace can receive double combat effectiveness bonus. Seeing this, Immortal nodded secretly. That's more like it. Immortal had planned to stay one more night and return to set up the Virtual Dragon Palace the next day. But Happy still felt that the underground palace was a little eerie. Thus, Immortal left the underground palace that afternoon. Before leaving, Immortal turned his head and looked at the crow beside Qin Shi Huang. This crow had the heart of a general and a minister. Perhaps it would be a disaster in the future. Immortal wanted to get rid of it, but he hadn't been able to kill it even though he had tried twice before. Perhaps in the future, he would be able to sign in and obtain some magic treasures or skills that specialized in restraining it. When the crow saw Immortal staring at it, its pair of round eyes stared back at Immortal. After a while, Immortal looked away and flew to base C1 with Happy in tow. After Immortal left, Crow Zhao Gao hissed, "That's right. Your Majesty, this person is a scourge. We cannot let him live." Qin Shi Huang waved his hand. "Don't talk nonsense. Perhaps he will become a general of the Great Qin in the future." Then, he said to the crow, "Your mission is to bring General Bai Qi to capture the demon Su Fu." Crow Zhao Gao hurriedly prostrated on the ground and said, "Yes." After Immortal left Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum, he returned to base C1 half an hour later. With a thought, he set up the entire Virtual Dragon Palace in base C1. The entire Dragon Palace covered the entire base C1. Of course, just like the Virtual Sentry Tower, no one else could see or touch the Virtual Dragon Palace. Only from Immortal's perspective could he see how magnificent the Dragon Palace was. The gate of the base city was the Dragon Gate of the Dragon Palace. It was more than 20 meters tall and magnificent. Looking from the sky, there were about 1,000 palaces in the entire Dragon Palace. And at the location of the corpse farm was the Dragon King Hall. When Immortal landed on the base from the sky, he could feel that the entire base seemed to be different from before. As for what was different, he couldn't figure it out in a short time. After finishing the arrangement, he looked at Happy beside him. He hoped that with the enhancement of the Dragon Palace, he could stimulate Happy's potential as soon as possible and awaken her oracle ability. After midnight that night, Immortal said in his mind, "System, specify the Titan Dragon Bloodline Modification Liquid and double the sign-in." Sign-in successful. Sign-in reward, 2,000 drops of Titan Dragon Bloodline Modification Liquid. When Immortal heard this, he was secretly delighted. Signing in the Virtual Dragon Palace was indeed useful. Previously, he estimated that it would take another 20 days to a month before he could level up again. Now, it seemed that he could level up again in half a month at most. The next morning, good news came one after another from the hunter group. In one night, more than 30 people in the hunter group broke through. These people had not broken through for many years. With their physical talent, they could only stop at their current realm for the rest of their lives. But now, they suddenly broke through. This made them all pleasantly surprised. However, apart from being pleasantly surprised, they were also puzzled. In one night, more than 30 of them who had not broken through for many years actually broke through at the same time. This was very strange. And this was only the beginning. For the next day, good news came from all over the base. Have you heard? When Uncle's son from the canteen woke up today, he suddenly found that his strength had increased a lot. After his zombie hunter son saw it, he was surprised to find that he was already a zombie hunter. Are you serious? I remember that Uncle's son had been injected with Virus X enhancer before. Didn't the enhancement fail in the end? Not only Uncle's son, but also old Yang in the warehouse, little Zhang in the water tower, and Chang Zi in the patrol team all became zombie hunters overnight. Damn, what's going on? Someone next to him said, not only that, I heard that 5 teachers in the school alone have become zombie hunters. And that teacher Wang actually became a psychokinesis overnight. It seems that something is definitely going to happen in our base. Soon, the news was summarized in front of the base chief. The base chief looked at the news and was also surprised. In the end, his gaze fell on one of the sentences: the closer you are to the zombie farm, the more people break through, and the more people succeed in strengthening. The staff officer next to him said, previously, there were no abnormalities in the base. Last night, Mr. Mo just came back. In one night, more than 30 people broke through in the base, and more than 100 people who failed in strengthening suddenly became zombie hunters or psychokinesis. This must be related to Mr. Mo, the chief nodded. Ask leader Guo of the hunter group to come over. I will go with him to visit Mr. Mo. Chapter 166. Mo sure woke up early in the morning but didn't get out of bed. Instead, he first transferred his consciousness into the sea dragon clone. At this time, the sea dragon clone had reached a length of 13 meters. It was a level 3 mutant beast. It seemed that this guy had been devouring while he was away. As a level 3 mutant beast, it was invincible within 100 kilometers upstream and downstream. Mo sure switched his consciousness back to his main body. As a level 3 mutant beast, the sea dragon clone had no problem dealing with level 6 mutant beasts with the trace of dragon consciousness he had left in it. He didn't need to keep his consciousness in its body all the time like he did for the previous 2 nights. At the current speed, it would probably become a super mutant beast in at most a month. At that time, it would be invincible in the entire Yellow River Basin. At this time, Happy had already placed the food he got from the cafeteria on the stone table under the grape rack. He knocked on the door of Mo Sher's room. Mo Sher responded. When he came out, Happy had already placed hot water and a towel at the door. After Mo Sher washed his face, the two of them sat under the grape rack and slowly ate breakfast. At the same time, more than 300 meters away from the corpse farm, 3 people were heading toward it. They were the base chief, Guo Jutao, the leader of the hunting group, and Du Xiaodo. The chief had originally planned to come with the leader of the hunting group. However, considering that Du Xiaodo had worked with Mo Sher before, he was the person who knew Mo Sher the best in the base apart from Happy. Therefore, they felt that it was best to bring Du Xiaodo along. Although Guo Jutao was already the leader of the hunting group, he still walked with a hint of femininity. He said, Captain Xiaodo, will we disturb Mr. Mo if we go there rashly? The chief also looked at Du Xiaodo. Du Xiaodo thought for a moment and said, Mr. Mo is very easygoing. As long as we don't provoke him, it shouldn't be a problem. Guo Jutao was stunned and asked, then if we disturb him rashly, does that count as provoking him? This question seemed a little silly. But in front of Mr. Mo, he had to be careful. Du Xiaodo recalled the Mo Sher in his memory and said, I don't think so. Guo Jutao nodded. That's good. But then he asked, wouldn't it be too much for 3 of us to go? Dou Xiaodo said, I think these are all small problems. As long as we don't disturb him too often, it shouldn't be a problem for us to visit him once in a while. The bureau chief also spoke up. Yes, with Mr. Mo's height and magnanimity, it's unlikely that he can't even tolerate 3 people. Not long after, the 3 of them arrived at the corpse farm. When Happy saw the trio, he quickly stood up. After all, the 3 of them were big shots in the base. Mo sure pointed to the food on the table and said, if the 3 of you haven't eaten before, why don't you eat together? The 3 of them hurriedly replied, yes, we have. Mo sure had already guessed their intentions. He took a sip of water and said, ask away. The 3 of them were stunned. It seemed that Mr. Mo already knew their intentions. Then, this matter was most likely related to Mr. Mo. The chief of the base didn't have the dignity that he usually had in front of others. Instead, he lowered his stance. Mr. Mo, last night, more than 30 people in the base suddenly broke through. Moreover, many ordinary people who had failed in the past had become corpse hunters or psychics overnight. This should be related to Mr. Mo, right? Hearing this, Mo sure was secretly surprised. Was the Dragon Palace so effective? On the surface, he just nodded slightly. Yes. Hearing this, the 3 of them looked at each other again. As expected. Mo sure continued. Let everyone train hard. Everyone has the possibility of becoming a corpse hunter or psychokinesis. Those who haven't broken through for a long time will also break through in a short time. A hint of joy flashed through the chief's eyes. Everyone had the possibility of becoming a corpse hunter or psychokinesis. This was simply unimaginable in the past. As for why it was like this, they saw that Emosher didn't seem to want to say more, so they didn't ask. After staying for more than 5 minutes, the 3 of them left the corpse farm. For the next 5 days, several people in the corpse hunter group broke through every day. In the entire base, there were 50 to 60 ordinary people who became corpse hunters or psychokinesis every day. They also knew that this was related to Mr. Mo. All of them were grateful to Emosher. At the same time, when Emosher checked Happy's attributes, he found that there was finally a change. Species, human, level, oracle, unawakened, ability, unknown. It didn't change much from before, but there was one less, question mark. But at least it gave Emosher hope. It seemed that the virtual Dragon Palace's effect of stimulating potential was also useful to Happy. Emosher couldn't help but look forward to it. It was also on this afternoon that something unexpected happened to Emosher. In front of the Leshan giant Buddha of the 4 provinces. One of Emosher's virus clones was standing there. Now, the entire Leshan giant Buddha's body was covered with blood-red vines. It was as if countless blood vessels were crawling on the Buddha's body. The Buddha was blood-red, and its eyes were frighteningly red. The 1051 spiral buns on the Buddha's head were all replaced by blood-red sarcomas. The interior of the Buddha had been hollowed out. The entire Buddha was a 71-meter-tall virus hive. Emosher's virus clone looked at it impatiently. His right hand turned into a titan dragon claw and slashed down. Whoosh, an invisible force swept past. The head of the blood Buddha immediately fell to the ground. Plop, with a loud bang, it fell into the river below, splashing up a wave of blood dozens of meters high. Then, the Dragon Will clone's psychic power swept across. Bang, 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 in the virus hive, all the infected creatures exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Including the entire blood Buddha, it was directly destroyed by his psychic power. At this point, the 10 virus hives in Wuxia were all destroyed. Without the virus hives, these infected creatures could still continue to grow stronger, but the speed of their growth would plummet. But at this moment, a few sounds came from the sky. Clap, 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 the virus clone looked up. 50 meters above his head, a figure was flapping its wings and hovering there. This person was wearing a black tuxedo. A white shirt. He looked somewhat gentlemanly. However, his pale face, blood-red eyes, and the 2 pairs of sharp teeth in his mouth revealed a hint of ferocity. Behind him, there was a pair of black bat-like wings. At the tip of the wings, there were sharp claws that shone with a cold light under the sun. He let out a few squeaks that were half human and half bat. I didn't expect that a mere low-level human could be so powerful. Interesting. Chapter 167. The person with a pair of wings had a hint of mockery on his pale face. I didn't expect a mere human to be so powerful. Interesting. The virus clone looked at this person with a cold gaze. The pale-faced person was still mocking him. However, no matter how strong humans are, they are still a lowly race. After saying that, he no longer hesitated. He flapped his wings and attacked the virus clone. The virus clone also brazenly faced the attack. The Titan's dragon claw slashed at the pale-faced person. Whoosh, an invisible force instantly pierced through that person's body. However, that person's body wasn't split open. Instead, it flickered and disappeared. It turned out that this was only an afterimage left behind by him. When he reappeared, he was already behind the virus clone. Then, he opened his mouth. 4 sharp teeth bit down on the virus clone's neck. Blood immediately gushed out from the virus clone's neck. The virus clone wanted to struggle, but soon, the strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out. He couldn't struggle at all. After a while, that person let go of his mouth. The virus clone immediately fell to the ground and kept twitching. That person took out a snow-white handkerchief from the inner pocket of his tuxedo. He elegantly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His fingers loosened, and the blood-stained handkerchief fluttered with the wind. Like a blood-red butterfly, it floated into the river. That person raised his head and chest. Even his posture looked so noble and elegant. He let out a half-human, half-bat-like squeak. Although your bloodline is lowly, with your strength, you are barely qualified to obtain the noble bloodline of the blood race. Just be my servant. The next moment, the virus clone's back began to slowly tear apart. From the crack, a pair of black bat-like wings stretched out. This pair of wings was only the size of a palm at first. However, it grew with the wind and soon reached about 5 meters. Among its 2 rows of teeth, 4 of them were growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His ears had also become slightly pointed. Its eyes also gradually turned blood-red. The blood race nodded in satisfaction. From now on, you are my servant. You should call me master. Let me hear you call me that. The virus clone lowered its head respectfully. He said, Master, your servant is willing to serve you. The Blood Clan member seemed very satisfied and nodded with a smile. Not bad, you're starting to look like one. But. However, before he could finish his sentence, the virus clone suddenly exploded. He pounced on the vampire. The Blood Clan member was caught off guard and had no time to dodge. His neck was bitten by the virus clone. However, the Blood Clan member's skin was as hard as diamond. The virus clone's sharp teeth were unable to bite through its skin. The Blood Clan member was a little confused. He had clearly bitten this human. Logically speaking, this human should have turned into a vampire. Furthermore, he should be 100% loyal to him. Why did it turn around and attack him? Of course, he didn't know that the virus avatar was 100% loyal to Immortal. Naturally, it was impossible for him to be loyal to others. However, the Blood Clan member was surprised. However, she still maintained her elegant smile. With a hint of mockery, he said, Do you think a vampire's body is as weak as a lowly human's? Since you've become a vampire, you should know that in this world, there's almost nothing that can hurt a vampire's body. Just as she said that, whoosh, a soft sound was heard. The virus clone's titan dragon claw pierced into the Blood Clan member's chest. The Blood Clan member looked down. He saw that the dragon claw had completely sunk into his chest. He couldn't help but be stunned. How was this possible? A mere human who had just obtained the bloodline of a vampire. He was just a low-level vampire. And he was already a high-level vampire. How was it possible for him to break through his body? After the shock, there was anger. A few minutes ago, he was just a mere human being, yet he dared to defile his body with his filthy claws. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. In his anger, his figure instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind the virus clone. Then, his right hand also turned into a sharp claw. It instantly slashed through the virus clone's body. Whoosh, a soft sound was heard. As blood splattered, the virus clone's body was cut into two. Countless tiny tentacles grew out from the virus clone's wound, wanting to connect the two parts of the body together. Seeing this, the Blood Clan member sneered. Filthy thing, you still want to revive? Saying so, his right claw once again reached into the virus clone's wound. The virus clone's blood was flowing out at a speed visible to the naked eye. The virus clone's body also gradually shriveled up. In the end, only a dried corpse with skin and bones was left. Only now did the Blood Clan member's anger seem to have subsided. He once again regained his elegant demeanor. He took out a white handkerchief and wiped the blood off his right hand. His fingers loosened, as if releasing a blood-red butterfly. The blood-stained handkerchief once again fluttered in the wind. He elegantly shook his head and sighed. Low-level humans are too barbaric. Even if they obtained the noble bloodline of a vampire, it still can't make them elegant at all. Barbarism is deeply imprinted in their bones. Saying so, he flapped his wings and floated into the air. His elegance didn't lose its dominance. Then, let me conquer this barbaric land and enlighten these barbaric creatures. At the same time, in the corpse farm of Base C1. Mo Sher was drinking tea and chatting with Happy. Suddenly, he paused. Happy looked at Mo Sher with concern with her big eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Mo Sher drank a mouthful of tea and said to Happy, I have something to do. I have some matters to attend to. I'll be back soon. Happy nodded obediently and gestured. I'll wait for Brother Mo to come back. Mo Sher stretched out his hand and gently rubbed Happy's head. Then, he used Dragon's Shadow Step and left Base C1 in a second. When the people in the base saw the 100-meter-tall phantom of a dragon suddenly appear in the sky above the corpse farm, they all lowered their heads respectfully. Mo Sher traveled 10 kilometers in a second and rushed to the 4 provinces. Previously, he had been letting these clones kill the infected creatures and didn't pay much attention to them. Therefore, when the clone was in danger, he didn't know. However, when the clone died, he could still clearly sense it. In all of Wuxia, other than Emperor Qin, there were very few creatures that could threaten the virus clones. Now that he could easily kill the virus clones, the person who came was definitely not simple. A journey of more than 1,000 kilometers took him less than 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, he arrived in front of the Leshan giant Buddha nest. Looking at the shriveled corpse of the clone, Mo Sher didn't feel sad at all. It was just a clone. However, he was slightly unhappy. Dragon consciousness swept over and quickly locked onto a figure more than 20 kilometers away. That guy was wearing a black tuxedo and had a pair of huge bat-like wings on his back. His skin was pale, and his eyes were blood-red. The blood dragon's eye opened, and this guy's attributes quickly appeared in Mo Sher's mind. Race, vampire, level 6 super mutated, vampire? Mo Sher was slightly surprised. Chapter 168. Mo Shi was a little surprised. It seemed that there really were vampires in the world. In his mind, the system's prompt sounded frowny-face vampires are also humans infected with the vampiric virus. Zombies were creatures infected with the X virus. Zombies were creatures infected with the zombie virus. Vampires were creatures infected with the vampiric virus. Thinking of this, Mo Shi felt that he seemed to have vaguely grasped something. At the same time, the vampire 20 kilometers away originally planned to go to the nearby human base. But at this moment, he suddenly felt that there was a human approaching the place where he had just killed the inferior human. This was the blood sensing unique to vampires. In the places they had just passed, they would leave behind the blood scent unique to vampires. It was similar to the scent left behind by humans. Through this blood scent, they could sense other creatures that appeared within the range of the blood scent. The vampire couldn't help but pause. Could it be that the inferior human had been resurrected? It was necessary to go back and check. Thinking of this, he turned around and flew toward the ruins of the Leshan giant Buddha. A moment later, he arrived above the Leshan giant Buddha. When he saw the human in front of the ruins of the Leshan giant Buddha, he couldn't help but be surprised. The shriveled corpse on the ground meant that the inferior human had not been resurrected. But why did this newly arrived human look almost exactly the same as the inferior human from before? In his confusion, he once again looked at the human in front of him mockingly like before. He could feel that the human in front of him should be very strong. But in his experience, no matter how strong a human was, there was a limit. On his way here from the west, the strongest human he had encountered was only a level 8 hunter. Not to mention a level 8 hunter, even a level 10 hunter was a complete noob in front of him. So when he looked at Mo Shi, he still had a condescending expression. He said, "I'll give you a chance to serve the noble vampires. If you take it, you'll live. If you don't take this opportunity." He pointed at the shriveled corpse next to Mo Shi. "Die." However, as soon as he finished speaking, his gaze suddenly froze. The next moment, boom, he was instantly smashed into the river by a huge force. Plop, the blood-red river water rose a blood wave more than 50 meters high. A huge blood pit instantly appeared in the river water. Shockwaves quickly spread out around the blood pit. Under the terrifying impact of the shockwave, the 100-meter-wide river was directly cut off. When he looked at the center of the river again, the Blood Clan member had long since disappeared from the 100-meter-wide crater. The speed that he was so proud of was not even displayed in front of Mo Shi before he died. Even when he died, he didn't understand how he died. In the next moment, the severed river water gushed madly into the center of the hole. With a loud boom, the river closed up again. Mo Shi, on the other hand, was looking through the memories of the Blood Clan member that he had just plundered. It turned out that the Blood Clan virus had already existed thousands of years ago. Humans who had been infected by the blood breed virus would become different from normal humans and become members of the blood breed, also known as vampires. However, the vampires back then weren't that strong. If they encountered humans armed with firearms, they would have no choice but to retreat. Therefore, they could only hide in the darkness. This was also the reason why there were only legends about vampires in the world, but no evidence of their existence could be found. They originally wanted to wait for the Blood Clan to become stronger before making a comeback. However, they didn't expect humans' firearms to become stronger and stronger, so they could only hide. Until the end of the world, when the virus X swept across the world. In the end, the firearms of the humans were all ineffective, and the Blood Clan reappeared. They also found out that after the virus X and their blood breed virus fused, their abilities became stronger and their strength increased faster. At the same time, their blood breed virus could also assimilate zombies and infected creatures. Now, after nearly 30 years of development, the Blood Clan had become the strongest existence in the Western world. The total number of Blood Clan members had reached more than 1 billion. It wouldn't be long before the entire Western world was completely ruled by the Blood Clan. At the same time, he also found some useful information from the Blood Clan members' memories. Among all the Blood Clan members, the strongest existence was only level 10 super-mutated Blood Clan members. They were equivalent to level 10 super-mutated zombies and level 10 Great Hunters. It seemed that due to some kind of restriction, no matter how strong the creatures in the world were, there was a limit. And this limit was level 10 super-mutated zombies. After reaching level 10 super-mutated zombies, it seemed that no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't break through this limit. Level 10 super-mutated zombies were like this. Level 10 super-mutated Blood Clan members were like this. Seeing this, Immortal's heart moved slightly. With his current strength, it wouldn't be a problem to crush a level 10 super-mutated zombie. If he leveled up 1 or 2 more levels, it wouldn't be a problem to have more level 10 super-mutated zombies. After he used up most of his evolution points and leveled up a few more times, he would go to the west and meet the Blood Clan members. At this time, killing this Blood Clan member should be considered a special event. Immortal said in his mind, "System, special event sign in." The system's voice sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, kill Blood Clan member, sign in reward, blood aura sense. Immortal checked this skill in his mind frowny face blood aura sense, passive skill. Leave a trace of blood aura in the places he passed by. Any creature that comes within 100 kilometers of the blood aura can clearly sense it. Immortal's blood aura sense was much stronger than the blood aura sense of ordinary Blood Clan members. The blood aura left by ordinary Blood Clan members could only last for 1 to 3 days. However, the blood aura left by Immortal could last for about a month. Moreover, the blood aura sense of ordinary Blood Clan members only had a radius of about 10 kilometers. Immortal's blood aura sense, however, had a radius of 100 kilometers. Then, Immortal glanced at the Leshan giant Buddha that had turned into ruins and said, "System, sign in at a special location." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, Blood Buddha Hive, sign in reward, Blood Buddha Avatar, Blood Handprint. Immortal checked the 2 rewards in his mind again. The essence of the Blood Buddha Avatar was similar to the virus Avatar. It was just that one looked exactly like Immortal. The other appearance was in the form of a huge Blood Buddha. The Blood Handprint was used in conjunction with the Blood Buddha Avatar. The Blood Buddha Avatar would strike with a blood palm that fell from the sky. The blood palm had an extremely strong restraining effect on any zombie, or Blood Clan member. It seemed that this avatar and skill were more mysterious, but in fact, they were all virus abilities. After signing in, Immortal tapped his foot lightly and disappeared from the spot. Only a 100-meter-tall dragon phantom was left. Immortal turned around and took a glance at the huge dragon shadow 10 kilometers away. He sighed in his heart, "This dragon shadow step is powerful, but it's a little too ostentatious." Chapter 169. After Immortal signed in at the ruins of the Leshan giant Buddha, he left the place. At the same time as he left, in America, San Francisco base. This used to be one of the 5 bases of America. But now, this place had been occupied by the blood breeds. The 150,000 humans in the base had all been infected and turned into blood breeds. In the president's office of the once world-famous Stanford University. It was night time. Classical music was playing in the office. An elegant blood breed in a suit was holding a book called The Silence of the Lambs and reading it under the moonlight. He was the strongest existence in the base and also the ancestor of the Smith family. He was now a level 10 super mutant blood breed. Reading books was one of his hobbies. Among all the books, his favorite was The Silence of the Lambs. After a while, he closed the book. His blood-red eyes looked at the moon in the night sky outside the window and sighed. Dr. Hannibal is definitely the most elegant cannibal among the inferior humans. If there is such a human in reality, he will definitely become the blood breed with the most potential. It was also at this moment that his elegant face suddenly frowned slightly. As the ancestor of the Smith family, all the members of the Smith family had his blood flowing in them. He could sense the death of any member of his family. Just now, he sensed that a great-grandson he sent to the east to investigate the situation had died. Someone dared to hurt the blood breeds of the Smith family. Outrageous. But even in his anger, he tried to maintain his elegance. He turned to the door, restrained the anger in his voice, and said, "Men." Soon, a middle-aged blood breed with an aquiline nose came in. He gave a medieval salute to Smith. Then he asked respectfully, "Great-grandfather, what can I do for you?" Smith asked, "Have you reached level 8? The aquiline nodded. "Yes, great-grandfather, I just broke through to level 8 super mutant blood breed yesterday." Smith nodded and said angrily but elegantly, "The clansmen I sent to the east were killed. Take 50 clansmen with you and investigate. If it's necessary, kill them all." The aquiline nodded immediately. "Yes, great-grandfather." Smith then added, "That's right. You'd better bring all the strong mutants in the clan. After investigating this matter, we'll sweep through the entire East. All of their infected creatures, including those lowly humans, must submit to the Smith family." The eagle-nosed vampire puffed out his chest and raised his head, replying confidently, "Please rest assured, great-grandfather. Within 10 days, the entire East will be the backyard of our Smith family." As he spoke, he once again bowed respectfully in the Middle Ages. Only then did he leave. The trace of anger on Smith's face had completely disappeared. Elegance once again took over his face. His hand caressed the silence of the lambs on the table, imitating Hannibal's tone, and said with dignity and elegance, "Someone once tried to investigate me. So I ate his liver with some broad beans and delicious red wine." As he spoke, he imitated Hannibal's voice. Hiss, hiss, hiss. 2 days later. China, Base C1. Mo Sure woke up, yawned, and stretched. After signing in for the past few days, he clearly felt that he would be able to level up again after signing in for another 10 days at most. He switched his consciousness into the body of the Sea Dragon clone. He saw that the Sea Dragon clone was now a level 4 mutant beast. Its body length had already reached 14 meters. Its dragon's will had not reached level 1 long Nianshi. But compared to ordinary level 10 psychokinesis, it was much stronger. A level 4 mutant beast coupled with a dragon's will that surpassed level 10 psychokinesis allowed it to run rampant in the Yellow River Basin. As long as it didn't encounter a super mutant beast, it was invincible. However, after being promoted to a strong mutant beast, its speed of improvement had obviously slowed down. Because in the past few days, it had devoured most of the slightly stronger mutant beasts in the Yellow River Basin. It didn't dare to devour the remaining powerful mutant beasts. The weak mutant beasts wouldn't be of much use after devouring them. Mo Sure was thinking. After this period of free time, he would try to control it to clean up the entire Yellow River Basin. Let it become the overlord of the Yellow River Basin. And in the past 2 days, many people in the base had made breakthroughs in their strength. The hunters in the base had increased to more than 50 people. Once again, they had returned to the peak level of the zombie hunting group. After a rough calculation, more than 23,000 of the more than 100,000 people in the base had become corpse hunters or hunter masters. Psychokinesis had also reached more than 600 people. This number was unimaginable in the past. Moreover, there were basically no infected creatures outside the base now. They began to send out zombie hunting groups to explore further areas around the base. They were searching for resources and planning to find a suitable place outside the base to cultivate crops. And all of this was thanks to Mo Shi. Although they didn't know what Mr. Mo had done, it was obvious that they had benefited greatly from it. Therefore, everyone was very grateful to Mo Shi. It was also on this day that Mo Shi and Happy took a walk in the base after finishing their meal. But at this moment, he suddenly sensed something. He sensed with his blood chi that a group of about 300 people had arrived near the Leshan giant Buddha ruins in the 4 provinces. Mo Shi's blood chi could directly sense the strength of these people. Most of these 300 people were super mutant vampires. The only 2 super mutant vampires were level 8 and level 3. Mo Shi secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, these guys had been in the west before. If they had come to the east earlier, they would have definitely swept through the entire east. But now... However, with Mo Shi's caution, even if his strength was far superior to these people, he still had to let his clones test them first. After all, he had just obtained the blood chi, and he still didn't trust this skill very much. Moreover, what if these guys had some trump cards? For example, on the surface, he was a level 6 great hunter, but he could kill a level 10 super mutant zombie. Therefore, he had to be cautious. Survival was the king's way. Thinking of this, he moved his mind. All 10 virus clones in Wuxia rushed to the 4 provinces. The 300 or so vampires had already discovered base C7, which was not far from Leshan. The leader of the vampires gave an order. Go to base C7 and interrogate those inferior humans. Let's see what dared to kill the members of the Smith family. When the vampires received the order, they immediately spread their wings and flew in the direction of base C7. At the same time, not far from base C7, more than a dozen hunters were exploring the Leshan giant Buddha ruins. A few days ago, they heard a roar coming from here. Today, they specially came to investigate. You're tuning into the UnparalleledSwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.